is sitting around on the walls, and we have technically empty seats at the desk, but hopefully they will be filled shortly. So hello, welcome everyone to this June meeting of the Manhattan Community Board 4 Transportation Committee. It's a different night for us based on the number of people in the room. Typically, it's just the committee that meets here in person, and anyone who's making a presentation or wants to attend our meetings attend virtually. So this is somewhat unusual for us, but I appreciate that everyone is being really flexible and found space, found room to sit. I'm very glad you're all here. So thank you very much.
So Lucy, I want to make a joke.
Yeah.
This is exactly the Port Authority trying to fit in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah. Big projects take a lot of people, and we understand that. So I just have some standard opening remarks that I need to make. We do have a very significant agenda this evening. So it does make sense, even though we are currently without a forum, to jump right into things, and then we will proceed forward. So first, just we have a standard preamble we have to read that MCB4 has a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have a disability and or extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on, and this meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel, and a transcript is being recorded, and it will remain there in perpetuity. Real quick, I think it's just important that we go around and introduce ourselves before we begin. For those of us who are here, hi, I am Jesse Greenwald. I am the co-chair of the Transportation Committee. I live in Chelsea. I've been a Chelsea resident for about 5 years now. Steve?
Christine Murphy, co-chair, Transportation Committee, Hell's Kitchen, and member of the working group with the Port Authority Bus Terminal for the last 4 years.
PT as a member of the committee, Transportation Committee, member of this committee for about 44 years.
Senator Miller, Health Kitchen, member of the committee.
Rodney Washington, member and Chelsea resident.
Alan Austin, member, Chelsea resident.
Great. Well, there we have it. All right, so
online, I'm Charlie Todd, public member.
sorry, Charlie.
Health Kitchen resident. Hey guys, sorry I can't be there.
No problem. All right, so we're gonna kick it off, obviously, with I think the number one item on our agenda. I'm glad we put it first, which is a presentation from the Port Authority on the new bus terminal that we are very excited to learn about. And then we'll have a discussion after that. So I will allow you to, if you don't mind, feel free to take the reins here. And whoever is speaking, yeah, probably makes sense. So we have a couple of cameras here that you can see. They're cameras and microphones. They will actually find you as you speak. So you being there is perfect.
Okay. Set everyone on the screen.
Okay.
See the.
Sorry, yes. Well, hold on 1 second. We got to download it and then. Hopefully we'll have to get that. Otherwise, we may just have to do it out. Do you mind just going this way? Is that all right? Okay, and we also need to share the screen, I'm realizing, so. Oh, there, nice. Okay. And then we do need to share the screen. Okay, sorry, I did forget to do that.
It is on the screen.
No, it's not, it's on
Oh,
our
it's
screen,
not on
but
that.
it's not on. All right. And then hopefully, can everyone online see?
Is this the right one?
This is not.
Yeah,
the right one.
yeah.
This is not. the right one.
We don't want to do this one here.
Okay, 1 sec.
When did you send over two of them?
This was, maybe this is the wrong one that I opened up, hold on.
You had it before.
What's that? This is fine, everyone can see it. We're sorry. No, that's still in use. Oh, boy.
Want to send it today? Actually, this is.
Well, it should be in our Dropbox.
What's it directly to Jesse from your phone and on?
Yeah, it should be.
I will send it to her.
Thank you very much, sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's also, it should be in our Dropbox. But I'm gonna leave that.
We're waiting.
Do a little dance on.
Yes, please.
No, now you don't want to hear.
Move on. So, I'm just gonna find, it should be enough up there.
Ah, one more.
One more, hello. Okay.
Tina Nelson.
Oh, wow. I can only let me search my phone box for some reason, so I can't even get it.
Did it actually go out from your inbox? Did it actually?
Yes, Christine, I sent it to you as well.
Milana, oh, I'm sending it to you. To Jess,
It's weird that it doesn't go to me, yeah. Sorry.
here it is.
Ah, it's in this one, it's in this one.
From me.
See, something is, oh, because this is the like. I understand
The
what.
wrong account.
This we're signed into the MCB4 account on here, that's why I was like, this doesn't even look like my inbox, because it's
Right.
not. So, hold on. No. Christina.
Yeah, if you want to introduce yourself, yeah. Yes,
Hello, I'm Liam,
who all these people are, wondering who you are.
I'm Liam Buckley, a member of the board, and first meeting as a member.
Yes, it is your first meeting, well,
Oh,
unfortunately, this first meeting is, your first meeting is a little bit chaos. But
Okay, yeah.
at least I did check to make sure the air conditioning was on, because it was not on all day, this is it on, so it could be worse. I was trying to figure out, I was like, why none of my stuff coming on? Alright, here
Leilani sent me the presentation. If you want, I can pull it up if you're having
we go.
trouble.
We got it now, we've just got it, here we go. Oh, alright. We're in, now we're sharing the screen. All this.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Can everyone hear me on the virtual audience?
Yes.
I see that. Excellent. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Glad to be here. Thanks for having us back in front of the Transportation Committee this time around. My name is Hirsch Breck. I'm the Deputy Chief of Intergovernmental Affairs for the Port Authority in New Jersey. I do want to introduce my colleagues who are here just very briefly. So we'll begin just from my right and work our way around. We have Christine Ortmeyer from the Port Authority Bus Terminal Facility. We have Ophelia Rivas, who's part of the Government Relations Department. Adam Taubman, who's from our Land Use Council, Crater 11. David Torres, who's from Major Capital Projects. Preeti and Balagan from Major Capital Projects. I'll introduce Ben Huff, because he's just in the line. Ben Huff from Department of City Planning. Who's behind the podium?
Sheila?
Is there someone else behind the podium or
No.
the pillar?
No, Sheila.
Okay, Sheila Bozon from Kramer Levin as well, our Land Use Council. Glenn Guzzi, Major Capital Projects. Liz Rogak from our Law Department. John Kovar from what firm? You're from our Project Team Consultant firm.
Part of the consulting.
Yes. We have Susie Lai from our Traffic Engineering Department and Seth from WSP, who's also one of our project consultants. So we have a large group here to present to you about this project. Tonight, we are here to present about the transportation related issues for this project. But just to give you again a refresher, that we are currently in the public review process for the ULURP application that we have submitted. We presented to the Land Use Committee just last week. And so we won't spend too much time on the land use issues. We have one slide just to give you a sense of the timeline of the ULURP application, but most of the presentation will focus on the transportation issues. But I did want to make that flag. And we are anticipating that the community board will vote on the full project, I believe, on July 24th, at your full board meeting on July 24th. So with that, we can go to the next slide.
Or we gotta amend.
Okay. So I'm gonna have Glenn Guzzi will go over the overview and timeline and just some visuals to give you a sense of what's today and what's to come. And then John and Seth will take us through some of the transportation and traffic analyses. Susie will take us through the 30th Street bus operations, and then we'll close us out with just a wrap up. So with that, Glenn Guzzi, I'll invite you up to take over the presentation.
Hi, good evening. It's good to be here. So Christine, I'm gonna try and do this in like record time. You know how short-winded I am. So let's see if I can do a personal best. So most of us know some of the details of the project. We'll take you through the overview, high level. If you have any questions, just stop me. I'm gonna go really quick because I know, Christine, you wanted to focus on transportation issues and you don't need to hear me drone on. So what is the bus terminal project? Today, and there was an evolution to the project of what we initially thought and how we got here today. So what the project entails is rebuilding a brand new bus terminal in its existing location, what you see in yellow. So I'm going to start from right on the east side and go west, going left. So New York Times building, 40th Street, 8th Avenue. It will sit for the most part in its existing footprint, with the exception of what you see going over 9th Avenue. A new structure that doesn't exist today, what you see in purple, temporary staging and storage. That building, a temporary terminal staging and storage, that's a building that we will build in the first phase. We'll get into the phase very quickly. It will primarily be used long-term for a staging storage facility. But as we talk very quickly about the sequence of construction, that will actually serve as a temporary terminal. One of the goals, many goals, but one of the goals, of course, is to maintain bus operations while we're going through this project. Something that's not really a simple task, especially in a dense neighborhood. So that will serve as a temporary terminal. What you see to the left, indicated in red, are ramps. Ramps aren't a really exciting thing to talk about. So I said it last time, the only exciting thing about the ramps is a much different configuration and a way to approach ramping than we've done today. And what I mean by that is today it's a single lane. These ramps will have a bypass lane. So as you know, what occurs today, and this kind of leads into some transportation related items. You know, today, if there's a situation on the ramp and there's a bus that's disabled, it can cause a backup into the Lincoln Tunnel, or if it's a bus departing the city going into the tunnel, as you know, it causes a backup on local city streets. What these ramps will enable the entire facility to do is to continue operating. So if there is a disabled vehicle on the ramp, there will be a bypass lane. So buses will continue to be able to operate. It won't cause the backups that you're experiencing today. Something we were asked to provide as part of this project, a number of things, is publicly accessible open space. Last week, you know, some folks referred to it as a park. I'm not allowed to call it a park. So right now, but what that really is, there will be 2 deck overs in that location over the existing Dyer Avenue car. And it's part of an ability and attempt to kind of reknit a portion of the community. But what will occur at the conclusion of the project, and we'll get into the function of these deck overs during construction, they will be converted into just over 3.5 acres of publicly accessible open space. The design hasn't been done. And then we'll talk very quickly a little later on. What we see ghosted here over the main terminal are 2 towers, one on the what is today the north wing, and one which is on the south wing facing 8th Avenue. Tower 2 initially was located to be in this location, 9th and 40th Street. But what you will see as we go through this is part of the ULIP application is a closure, a permanent closure of the existing 41st Street underneath the bus terminal between the north and south wing. And that closure has enabled us to move the tower from this location, 9th and 40th, over to 8th Avenue, more in line with the high-rise district. We can move to the next. I should have said before, but we can stay here. There was a commitment made early on that this project, after we went through, the Port Authority went through a series of studies and initiatives to look at how to replace a bus terminal. Those were scrapped. One of the things that came out of those studies was, expanding its footprint into private property. Port Authority in response to community, we made the commitment that this project will not be built on private property. So what you're about to see as we go through this and the massing, how everything's been arranged is a direct result of that commitment, where this project is to be built solely on Port Authority property, no taking of private property. So super quick construction timeline, and we are currently in an environmental. You'll see in the slide where we are in that environmental process. It's a federal process. You'll hear in just a little bit how that federal process it does coordinate with the secret process as it relates to Euler. But where we are is closing out on the end of that process. So the anticipation is that early action work could begin by the end of this year. What that looks like is primarily 2 phases. I kind of call that 2.5 phases. The first bit of work is the half phase, which would be the creation of the deck overs over Dyer Avenue. But that will also overlap in terms of the timing of phase 1. Phase 1 is what you see outlined in red. It would entail the deconstruction of the existing ramps, building of some temporary ramps as we go through the process of building the storage and staging facility and the permanent ramps. It's a complicated sequence. Thank goodness we have a lot of smart people, a lot smarter than I could ever figure that one out. But when that is complete, that purple building that you see, which is known as storage and staging, will then serve as the temporary terminal. Once that building is up and running, the terminal, as you know it today, will be decommissioned, we'll deconstruct it, and then begin the second phase of building the bus terminal, a brand new bus terminal in its existing location. What we're really talking about in terms of timing is, like I mentioned, very early action work at the end of this year, leading to conclusion of phase 1 towards the end of 2028, which would then enable us to move forward in phase 2 with the main terminal, beginning at end of 28, 29 thereabouts, concluding again around the end of 2032. When that timeframe and those 2 elements come together is when we will then be able to do the deck overs, the conversion. Very quick timeframe. We can go to the next. So where are we in the federal process, the EIS process? We began with a notice of intent back in 2021. So where we are today is item number 6. There's been a series of public hearings. Some of you have participated. The community board, we have received, your comments, and we're working on the response to comments, just a few. So we anticipate having that done in the not so distant future with a final EIS and record of decision sometime this summer. Don't know the exact timing. It really is depending on, FTA and the review and some of the sequence that they will do internally, but we do anticipate that record of decision this summer. Go to the next. So it's a voluminous document, but it will be broken down initially into these 17 different chapters and really then consolidated into 6 primary chapters with an appendix and all the other supporting documents, which will be about this big and about 8,000 pages, whatever the case is. But it breaks down from the purpose and need, how we went through the alternative analysis, all the various studies that are required by NEPA, and the analysis relative to transportation, the built environment, the natural environment in terms of impacts and mitigations to safety, security, as you can see, the construction sequences, and mitigations that could be envisioned. Now, what you'll see here in terms of mitigations that could be envisioned just does not necessarily limit us to that. As we go through the process and we work together and we think of different ways to handle issues as they arise or before they arise, how do we plan certain activities in a way that makes sense and might be a way that we hadn't thought in the document. So while there's a chapter on construction and there's mitigation in there, it doesn't mean that that is the only thing that we will do. It's a living document. It enables us to be flexible and work together to come up with strategies that make sense. Go to the next slide. Euler. So as Hirsch mentioned, we have an individual here who works for the Department of City Planning that we've been working with for quite some time. We couldn't be where we are today without the city as well. So we're grateful because, you know, I'm going to try and do a bad imitation of you, Hirsch, from last time. There's some sensitive timing elements to both NEPA and Euler, and having this complete before any potential change might occur in Washington, D.C. If it does, but we want to be careful about that, and we want to be cognizant of, you know, what happened in the past and try to avoid that. So the reality is, you know, we're going through NEPA, Euler, as is prescribed. It was certified by the city on the 28th and set forth the prescriptive measures. And as we go through the process and continue to meet with yourself and others, we are looking, I'm going to just jump right ahead to having an anticipated vote in November with mayoral approval late November. So you can see, you know, I don't have to explain that to you, you've gone through that before, but our time frame is end of November, thereabouts, for a conclusion of Euler. Go to the next. Okay, so we will kind of show you the bus terminal as it is today, like you don't know, but kind of like where we're going, what our thinking is, and the approach to the project. Let's move to the next. So 41st Street, looking from 8th Avenue, don't have to tell you about the environment you live here. And I would try to avoid this area when I lived here in this neighborhood. So it hasn't improved. So back to creating a structure that makes sense, that's efficient, and also creating a new facility that actually lives in the neighborhood versus, you know, is an island in the neighborhood and the neighborhood exists and lives around it. But you're integrating a facility that first people can be happy with, that looks good, but it also has to function for the intended purpose. So having worked with the city and the working group, we've come up with a plan to close 41st Street. That's part of the application that you'll be voting on in July. So we'll go to the next slide, please. So today, there's a north wing, there's a south wing. The north wing was built in the 70s, the south wing in the 50s. It's convoluted, it's not easy to navigate. There's nothing that's simple about the interior of this building. There's nothing pretty about the exterior of this building. And it's even worse below grade, trying to find one's path to mass transit. So we have an entrance on the north and on the south. In the future, with the closure of 41st Street, we'll be able to do something much different that provides a strong and what we think will be an attractive civic presence. We wouldn't be presenting this to this committee if the working group said, oh no, this is bad. So let's go to the next slide. We'll join the two in a brand new facility where there'll be a kind of a very welcoming main public entrance on 8th Avenue. Of course, there'll be access points on 40th Street, on 9th Avenue. So this is not the only entrance, but this will be the primary kind of front door. And then on either side, the north and the south, will be lobby entrances to the commercial development facing 8th Avenue. Go to the next. So rendering and what our project architect, Foster and Epstein, is looking at in terms of creating something that has a more stately civic presence. It would be a large atrium kind of setting so that from the outside you can look in and you can see all the way through to the other side of 41st Street. And then from the inside, you'll be able to find natural light, which doesn't exist today, and a more intuitive way of finding oneself through the building. We'll go to the next slide. So 8th and 40th. We actually did look for as good of a picture we could find, so it didn't look that bad, but this is what we were able to muster. As Foster and Epstein is envisioning this environment in the next slide. Something much more grand, cleaned up. And of course, when we talk about architecture, what we're seeing here is an interpretation of the direction we're going. However, one thing I want to be clear, even though this is transportation, is the neighborhood is different from 8th Avenue to 9th Avenue, 9th to 10th and 11th. The architecture and the feel of the neighborhood is different. So the plan for the architecture is going to evolve. So what you see here isn't necessarily what's going to be carried through the entire structure. We're working at having the architecture resonate with the community in which that portion of the building resides. So what you see here is the main entrance with the atrium and the entrance for Tower 2 facing 8th Avenue.
And you want to mention a much wider sidewalk
Yes,
for the transportation people.
I was going to get ahead of other people.
There's a slide coming up.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
I know my part. Let's go to the next, please. But look how wide that sidewalk is. Isn't it beautiful? So inside, I really don't like this image, but this is how one finds their way to the subways. If you can get there, if you can figure out how to get there, especially if you're visiting and you don't know the facility or you're not from the neighborhood. With the central atrium, the next slide will show you this is the same exact vantage point, standing at the same location, below grade, your street level, looking into the transportation, the subway system, and then seeing how that will rise through the facility. So if you come in by a subway to find a bus, or if you're coming into the facility by a bus and you need to find mass transit, it's a much easier kind of open way to navigate through the structure, through the facility. If you're living here, it becomes a place where you can enter, where you actually would want to enter to pick up a train or even take in some of the retail that will be inside and outside of street facing retail. Much different environment. Go to the next. Okay, so this is 40th Street. I'm sure a lot of us try to avoid this sidewalk here at 10.5 feet wide from the wall to the curb line. Our plan would be for the following: to widen the sidewalk. Christine, we're going to widen the sidewalk to 17.5 feet. Also with trees, to include trees. And this is again a massing. It is certainly not architecture, but what it's to show is the evolution of the sidewalk. The next slide will show the exterior as it is today. And someone really did think that was a good idea back then, to what we're looking at in the future, which would be, and again, not the final architecture. And we'll continue to work on that and work with the working group on how that architecture evolves. But what this is really to show is that that entire area of 40th Street between 8th and 9th will have street facing retail. So with the widened sidewalk and the street facing retail, we're going to normalize like what is a normal experience within the city. And when you circulate around this building, making it much different than it is today. So you actually want to be there and it makes sense and there's something to do there. Go to the next. Okay, so typical bus level, this is in the DEIS document. So if you really want to spend some time studying it, it's there. So mentioned that we were going to build the bus terminal in its existing location, with the exception that to meet the demand and future capacity, and how to also keep the building scaled so it didn't get too high, but also meeting the transportation needs of the facility. The building will come across 9th Avenue. You'll see how that looks in just a bit, but that's part of the deal with the application. And what you're seeing is the direct connection between the ramps on the left, or the ramps that come out of the Lincoln Tunnel, or the ramps that will lead into the Lincoln Tunnel. Once, say for instance, AM rush hour, bus comes in, has to get to the bus terminal, it'll circulate through the ramps, through the storage and staging facility, it's off city streets, go into the terminal, pull into one of the gates, drop off, be able to circulate around, stay within the system, and be able to then go back to the storage and staging facility until such time that it's needed again. Some buses will likely go back to New Jersey, depending on how, say, for instance, New Jersey Transit operates their fleet. But for those in this facility, will hold between 300 and 350. What that does is it takes away all those service lots that are throughout the neighborhood, and you see the buses moving around and driving around and getting backed up and held up on the intersection of 40th and 9th, for instance, and trying to get back in for the PM rush. They're in the facility. They're not having to touch the streets. So once they come in, they stay there. It also reduces idling on the streets. They can turn off. It's a much cleaner, simpler way to conduct the business of the bus terminal. Go to the next. So traffic analysis, this is not going to be me. Our colleague John is here. He's one of the smart guys I was telling you about, so he will take over traffic analysis. But if there's any comments or questions, or if you want me to touch on something.
I feel like we should actually probably hold to the end just because there's a lot to get through, but if people have comments and questions, obviously, write down, but let's push through.
Thank you, Glenn, and I would just like to start by saying my graphics will not be as pretty as Glenn. This is traffic, next slide. So some of you may have heard some of this, it's not a lot of new stuff, maybe some clarifications in some of our earlier meetings, but when we started the traffic analysis, it's a very complicated project. We're in Midtown Manhattan, and really to understand traffic and how it reacts to the changes that will be happening to the network, we developed a micro simulation model. This micro simulation model is a dynamic model, so it has the ability to make adjustments. If we close a road, if we reduce lanes or make more lanes, the model has the ability to adjust and compensate for those changes within our network, as opposed to us coming in and manually saying, okay, we're closing 41st Street, for instance, and one vehicle that was coming down 41st Street might make a right. That would be a professional judgment. As what we have in here, we've started with the New York City model of Manhattan, and we've expanded upon that, and it has all origin destination information. So it's based in reality of how cars are currently operating within the network. So as we make changes, it's based in real time and what happens today. And like I said, it will allow for detouring of traffic. It anticipates congestion. So you may see something that says, oh, well, why did that vehicle go one way or the other way? The model is anticipating some of that congestion that may have changed and making the adjustments to have the most efficient movement in the network. And we've used all the regulatory, we've worked very closely with New York City DOT in keeping all the regulatory requirements within the network as they are today. Next slide. So as I mentioned, 41st Street is going to be closed as part of this proposal. So one of the questions that I would anticipate that the community would ask is, well, what is going to happen to traffic? So in this graphic, what I've tried to show is what will you see in the changes in traffic. So here in the blue, this is the existing traffic volumes. In the kind of pinkish color, that would be without the closure, what the volumes would currently be in the future conditions. We always project up to 2040, which is our design year, so we understand future impacts. And then with the closure, how the traffic would adjust based on our micro simulation model. And then that last column is the percentage change that you might see through this network. So you can see here, this is 41st Street, and then you're of course going to see a reduction in traffic because now it is not a throughput. But the interesting part is what you see in the bottom here in the southern part is more of the increases in traffic. And what we're seeing is the traffic that's coming up north to get over to the west side is turning off earlier. So we don't see all that traffic still going to 41st Street and then making a right onto 8th Avenue, a left onto 42nd, and then a left onto 9th Avenue to continue. We're seeing a much more diverse pattern in our traffic that is evening out some of the traffic that's happening in the area. Next slide. So with that, we wanted to look at actual, these are turning movement counts. We had done some turning movement counts through the entire network. And what I've shown here in the white is what those existing turning movements are. In the kind of tan is what the future build with the project would be. And then I separated out just those volumes that would be generated based on the development that is occurring. with the office hours. One of the things I wanted to note here was there is a lot of traffic being generated in this area, but most of that traffic is just general background growth. When you look at some of the building that is going to be going on with the city, there's a lot of development that is occurring. And that's really the bulk of the traffic that's being generated. I'll just use a quick example here. This happens to be 39th Street. Existing, we have 1161 in our traffic heading south on 9th Avenue. In the future, it goes up to 1540. So that's a 50% increase in traffic. But really, we're only seeing 85 of those 500 vehicles that are being generated, that is being generated by the traffic, being generated by the development. So although we see these very large
I think
developments.
you need to explain that in CIPA, you are making an assessment of X% growth per year, right?
Right,
That's what you are doing there,
right, we follow the C-curve guidelines.
right?
We work very.
Which we know is ridiculous, right? Excuse me.
Well,
You don't need to respond to
I
that.
wouldn't
No, you
say-
don't need to respond.
I appreciate that, and a lot of people
But
say,
you know
that,
that,
but,
you know.
you know, New York City is very progressive in how they do their traffic management. There's a lot of agencies out there that are not where New York
You
City
don't have to
is.
defend DOT. They're not
Well,
here.
we have New York City planning here, so. But anyway, this guidance that we've used and we've developed follows what they did for Penn Station.
Yeah, no,
follows what they did from
I just
Moynihan.
want everybody to understand, like by miracle, you know, the whole project was doing this. Instead
Well,
of that.
and we have to remember where this bus terminal is. It's on a bus terminal. And New York City has a lot of mass transit, so we're not necessarily generating a lot of individual traffic. We're generating a much more pedestrian traffic and bus coming into the terminal. But as far as just general overall traffic that's hitting the city streets, we're not seeing, you know, significant numbers in that. You do see some numbers, but the significant numbers just are not there. And this happens to be the AM. Next slide. We did the same exercise for the PM. PM numbers are a little bit higher, of course, is what you're going to see. So say, for instance, here, this happens to be 40th Street. We're at 1,000, now we're at 2,100 in the future, and we're generating about 207, so a little less than 20% of that future growth is due to the development as part of the bus terminal. But again, you see numbers here that are not too high. I mean, we have one over there at 273 and as low as 49.
You should come and live in this neighborhood.
What's that?
You should come and live in this neighborhood.
I love it, I can't.
It's just kidding. Give you a sense of how bad it is, but just, I'm kidding.
Sure. Next slide. So one of the other things that is always of concern to neighborhoods is truck traffic. You know, what is going to happen with truck traffic? Will the proposed bus terminal be generating bus traffic? And what happens? So here in 2019, these were the existing traffic volumes on 41st Street for traffic. And you can see some of the numbers coming up 9th Avenue or 8th Avenue are in the vicinity of 100, but those trucks going across 41st Street are generally very light. We're seeing through traffic of, you know, less than 20 or so trucks that go through there. Next slide. We also did a count for what's happening mid-blocks. There's a couple, there's the postal facility and a couple loading docks mid-block. And those were the counts that we got, only 7 in the morning and 5 in the evening that we were seeing for the timeframes that we analyzed. And next slide. So with the 41st Street open, you can see our truck traffic stays about the same in what happens. We're seeing 21 go through, 8 come up on 8th Avenue and go across 41st Street in the PM, which is the higher. And then if we go to the next slide. This is again through the micro simulation model and distilling, you know, what is happening with the truck traffic. the number of trucks that are through the network are still relatively low. You do see a little bit of an increase in traffic coming down Ninth Avenue that will now be turning onto 41st Street to access the loading docks. There's about 23 trucks that would be doing that. So generally speaking, that's the morning, and then in the evening, it drops off as what you would expect, dropping off to 9. But generally speaking, looking at these numbers, truck traffic will not change significantly from what's out there. So I think that's my last slide.
All right, thanks, John. Thanks, everyone. I want to talk about bus conditions and transportation during the second phase of construction, which is Glenn outlined. You can go right to the next one. Is when the SSF, or the storage and staging facility, is being used as the interim terminal. The red rectangle, that the existing terminal is in the process of being decommissioned. So the SSF is used as the interim terminal, and the 2 dire deck overs are being used for bus operations. The flow of buses coming in, and the demand for buses doesn't stop just because of the construction. We're assuming that it still happens and it grows as time passes. And so to understand the capacity and kind of how we ended up looking at where things can fit or can't fit, or how we allocate space for them, I want to talk through this table really quickly. In particular, the column that's marked 2028, which is when the main terminal, the existing terminal, goes offline, and the SSF is used as the interim terminal. The top number, the 764, is what is forecast for that year for the total number of bus trips coming in during the PM peak hour, which is the busiest and kind of most intensive use for bus times. And the storage and staging facility has a peak hour capacity of 460 bus trips. So the 304 underneath that's the number of buses that do not fit into the storage and staging facility. And so the next few lines start showing how we allocated those buses that could not be accommodated inside the storage and staging facility. The first number you'll see is the 115, that's the dire deck overs just to the south of it. And they can handle that number of bus trips in the PM peak hour. Excuse me. Working with New Jersey Transit, we identified the opportunity to divert approximately 46 trips where passengers would go to a different mode or take a bus but to a different location, George Washington bus terminal, bridge bus terminal, or some transfer in New Jersey to come in by a different mode. And then we ended up locating 90 curbside trips across 18 positions where the buses would operate on curbside locations. We identified these locations in coordination with New Jersey Transit, where we thought we would try to keep the location as proximate to the current terminal as possible, so for that access to transit. And we also thought that it would be feasible from the operations point of view. And then for the last remaining, the West 30th Street lot, where we're saying 55 intercity buses per hour could make their trips there. And so the number on the bottom is the number we're left with. So we actually have, with this plan, we have a surplus of about 2 buses in the PM peak hour. And then you'll see in 2032 and 2040, the main terminal, the new main terminal is now online starting in 2032. And you can see that the forecast number has increased as forecast projections for growth have gone up, and the terminal capacity has gone up as well, fortunately. So there's a surplus in the terminal, so there's room to grow, which is exactly what the Port Authority wants to do after you look to the future, accommodating that regional growth. So that we do not have any need for the dire deck overs or bus operations, no longer have to do conversions or curbside. And in the proposed project scenario, we're no longer using West 30th Street as part of these operations. So while we're in phase 2 of construction, it's challenging. And this is where we located these interim curbside operations during construction. And the mode that most people who are arriving or departing through the bus terminal use, about half of them walk to or from their ultimate destination. So you arrive by bus, you walk to work. That's about 50% people. And about 42% of people arrive by bus, let's say, and then get on transit. So what we'll see is when we take a lot of the people, about 12 to 15% of the total buses in the PM hour are moved a little bit south and a little bit west. Many of them want to be over here, and that's part of the selection of this alternative, because we want to maintain those existing connections. So in this condition, we estimated how many people would try to continue making their trip by walking to where they're going, which is mostly to the east. And for many others, that 42% that take transit today, we routed them where if they're on the Dyer Deck overs or at the storage and staging facility, they would likely go over to the 8th Avenue subways. If they're further to the south and the west, we rerouted them to the Hudson Yards, 34th Street, number 7 line. Or if they're over in places that marked 6B or 6A, they may go over to Penn Station instead to complete their trip. Obviously, between the large number of buses that are accommodated in the storage and staging facility and the Dyer Deck overs, that's going to be where the most pedestrian activity is. That's also where the bulk of the construction for phase 2 will be, as you're deconstructing and then building a new terminal. And there will be very careful MPT or maintenance and protection traffic plans to help ensure that those pedestrians can move through that space safely while you're accommodating traffic and the construction activities. And that's still a work in progress. As you know, more details around the design, means and methods from the contractors gets put together. I do want to call out in closing that this is kind of the process working. We had 2 locations on Hudson Boulevard East. You can see them there in that kind of deep purple, 2A and 2B. Through the process of public comment, we got informed that that was going to be turned into a shared street and that that would not be a good location for buses to operate at a curbside location. We are going to be revising that in the FEIS. So just want to note that, appreciate your comment and the opportunity to correct it. Let me turn it over to Sean. Excuse me.
You also
Excuse me.
You're not totally fine. Cool, all right, so I'm gonna talk to you about 30th Street. Now, this is not technically part of the bus rental program, right? But the Port Authority in parallel is advancing a project to build out our 30th Street bus lot to help support future bus operations. So if you go to the next slide. So right now on 30th Street near Dyer, we do have an existing bus lot and a bus operation down there. There's an existing bus stop down there. What we are undergoing the design process for right now is to build out this entire area to expand our bus operations. Again, this is a very preliminary concept. It's subject to change based on coordination with the city, coordination with DOT and other stakeholders. But for the areas within our property, we're proposing to build out a few bus gates here to help support our bus operations. The way they're gonna come in and out is what I'm gonna walk you through, again, from a high conceptual level of it. So buses who are coming from New Jersey, who are going to be dropping off passengers, are gonna come through the Lincoln Tunnel just north of us. They're going to travel through the Lincoln Tunnel Expressway, and they're gonna exit right here. And they're gonna make a right before we get to 30th Street. This area, they'll be able to drop off, they'll be able to do whatever they need to. And once the buses are done here, they'll be able to exit out on 10th Avenue to either recirculate to pick up additional passengers or just go back up 10th Avenue to enter Lincoln Tunnel to go back to their home garages in New Jersey. For buses that are now picking up passengers, so departing buses, departing from New York City, very similar to what exists there today. There are buses today that are making a right turn from 9th Avenue, coming into this area here. They'll be able to pick up their passengers, do whatever they need to inside the slot. And then from here, it's either a straight shot into the expressway to get into the Lincoln Tunnel, or they can recirculate to city streets to make other stops or other pickups as necessary, or if they're going to their home garages elsewhere. So essentially, this is the high level concept of what we're thinking for 30th Street. Again, a project technically not part of the program, but it is a project we're advancing in parallel with the program on 30th Street.
Suzie, just, we are right side of the intersection, right? It's
Correct.
critical for this meeting.
Correct, absolutely. So you see that we're heading that out. So 30th Street, we're actually proposing to consolidate and kind of tee it off. Again, the exact dimensions, exact list is pending coordination with the city and with other stakeholders, but we do want to tear it off to make this a nicer looking and easier to traverse intersection than the way it is today. And this also incorporates the Highline extension. So you see the columns of the Highline here. We are fitting this in within what exists out there today as part of the Highline extension. All right, so I think with that, I'm gonna turn it back to you, Hirsch.
Okay, so to close us out. Just wanna remind folks about some of the project benefits that will come with the bus terminal project. Really an inspirational facility with a civic presence, unlike the the fortress that currently exists that kind of keeps people out. We want to make it a more of a welcoming facility. Moving those curbside intercity buses off the street, so those Bolt buses, mega buses, so on, moving them inside the terminal. There will be a dedicated floor within the new bus terminal where they will have additional gate capacity. We covered this in the renderings that Glenn shared, but we are significantly increasing the amount of street facing retail, right? So you're not, again, just seeing blank brick, or whatever walls, and it's sort of, intimidating, really activating those spaces to make them more retail and community friendly. The staging and storage facility Glenn referenced, critical to get buses off the streets. And by taking out some of those mid-block entrances on 40th Street, for example, you're again improving the pedestrian experience, the direct access to the Lincoln Tunnel for buses, preserving that critical connection to subway and buses, that atrium, which will be on 8th Avenue, 40th and 42nd Street, again, creating that really civic presence that you see at other places like Moynihan Train Hall, right over here. The 3.5 acres of open space, reknitting the community, sidewalk widening and other public realm improvements. And lastly, really don't want to leave out the very strong focus that we have as an agency across all of our facilities, especially our newer facilities, the commitment to sustainability and meeting our net zero targets. So the next slide will just tell us where we're going next. We're here at Transportation today. As I mentioned, our next presentation will be a brief presentation at the full board meeting on July 24th. If you want to learn more about the project, including the EIS, visit our website. Leilani here, who I introduced earlier, but I should have, so my apologies for that, Leilani. But she is the point person here, so if you have any questions, please email her. And lastly, we do want to make sure that when we start construction, we have a robust list of community residents, stakeholders, businesses, and that is a QR code to scan, so you can get onto our email list. We will send you construction updates, traffic updates, and other project updates, so please share that yourselves and with your neighbors so we can build out that list. So that is our presentation. Happy to take some questions.
Great. So just before we move on to questions, I just want to sort of set up the conversation here. Great, everyone back from the public. I've seen a number of public hands being raised during online during the presentation. So first of all, obviously, thank you so much for that incredibly detailed presentation. There's a lot for us to think about. For this committee, just for those who aren't welcome, that's your first meeting here. Just for context, in case anyone doesn't know, or you've heard several references to the working group. Christine has been involved in the Port Authority working group for how long is the working group been going? Okay, a long years. So there's been a lot of community board input into this already. In our Dropbox, you can see a list of mitigation questions and points that we already have. So this is just an opportunity for us to, ask any other questions that we see that came from this presentation that maybe the working group should think about, or we just don't know the answers to ourselves. Just because, that was a more of a lengthy presentation, I think I'm going to try to limit this conversation to about 15-20 minutes, but obviously we want to open the floor because this is our one chance. We have everyone here. And so obviously whoever wants to have a question, feel free. And just for everyone online, we're going to do committee questions, then we'll turn it over to the public for if anyone on the public has questions, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Ronnie.
Thanks, this was great. So in the next few years, in this area, we could potentially have the Gateway Tunnel, Port Authority, say, related gets the casino, are there conversations that happen even now in the preliminary phases of how all this construction could happen in this particular area?
So, as it relates to Gateway, the good thing is major capital projects is also, the Port Authority has a, I don't wanna diminish it, but it is a relatively small role in the construction management effort of the Gateway project. Now, there's obviously the Gateway Development Commission, which is overseeing the entire project, but we have a lot of interface with GDC. And like I said, the team that Glenn and many of the folks in this room are a part of are also involved in a lot of aspects of that project. So there will certainly be coordination with, you know, what's happening with that project and the construction on this side of the river and this project. As it relates to the casino, you know, we're not sure what's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen, how it's gonna happen, where it's gonna happen, right? So we're not gonna really sort of deal in hypotheticals here, but you know, if that were to happen in this area, we would certainly coordinate with that developers.
Okay, I had several questions, but given your intro, I'm gonna limit it to one, which is my biggest concern. The storage, the temporary terminal. You say that you're putting up. Let me go back. You said that the terminal now doesn't consider if there's a blockage. There could be a blockage that stops traffic back to the tunnel and several streets. And that's a problem, obviously, and the new terminal will take care of that, but my question is, will the temporary terminal take care of that problem?
So the answer is yes, because, and we didn't get into the ULURP actions here, right? But part of the ULURP actions involve demapping certain areas so that it allows for the configuration of the new ramp structure, right? And that new ramp structure will be wider than the current ramp structure, so you can have a bypass lane, right? So if there is a breakdown of a bus on the ramp structure, you know, buses can get around it, right? So the ramp structure that you saw, that red piece of the project, those will be wider than the current ramp structure and will allow for that bypass lane. And to do that, we need to utilize some areas that are currently off the Port Authority property. And that's why we're engaging in a demapping exercise through the ULURP process.
They are doing a overhang, so the floor above are wider than the footprint, and therefore, because they're wider, they can expand the number of lanes.
Right, but that's in the final terminal.
No, so
That's-
the ramp structure will be,
Fine.
so phase one includes the ramp structure as well.
Okay,
And that ramp structure is exactly where.
So that's why they can do that now.
good, so it won't be a problem,
Right.
thanks.
Other questions? I imagine we have, yeah, so.
That's always a question, but the only thing that concerned me was the traffic analysis, which we didn't follow too. But it seems that the concern might be the amount of traffic going into the southern section.
Into the what section?
In the southern part of the district.
Oh, I see.
My only concern
That's
would
where
be.
it is.
North Chelsea, so to speak.
Right.
So that's all. I don't know if there's anything that you're looking at in terms of trying to mitigate that somehow, or working with DOT to move traffic in a different direction, or how much is it going to really affect the residents in the southern end of the whole project?
So two things. One, I'm gonna ask Glenn to come and answer this as well, but two things. One is the coordination with DOT is going to be extensive during the course of this project, but it has to be, right? And two, we're gonna have a whole traffic management plan, right? We've been able to sort of really fine tune these plans at our airport programs where we've been able, you know, we've had some challenges, but we've been able to really implement some very strong tools and strategies to manage traffic really as effectively as possible. Well, Glenn, is there anything you want to add in terms of the management of the traffic?
Well, I think it's an important question, not just for your location, but throughout the entire district. So as a means to address that issue and many others, one of the things we did at the World Trade Center, so I did the World Trade Center project from September 11, 2001, through basically now. And in those early years, when we were really engaging in active construction, we had to shut West Side Highway down. It became a staging area. Clearly, that had a lot of implications to Battery Park City and all throughout Community Board One, for instance. So we tried something which was a little bit different for us back then. We created a construction logistics office, and in that construction logistics office, we work, it does several things. It will work with the contractors in terms of what is their means and methods, what is the schedule, what is the hours of operation for their work, what is it that they're looking to achieve, and then we would kind of throw the darts at it and say, okay, that doesn't work because you're looking at doing a 20-hour day. That was World Trade Center. I'm not suggesting that for here. It was a different environment downtown. But it was also how we would go about managing with our traffic engineers. We had Sam Schwartz Engineering, an outside consultant working with us, looking at how exactly, based on what a contractor, and we're in that procurement process very early. And they'll have to come to us and say, okay, for say the deck overs or for the construction of the ramps, they're going to do X, Y, or Z. And we're going to, from a technical standpoint, look at what those plans are. How do we foresee that having an impact to pedestrian traffic, vehicular traffic, residential buildings, or local businesses? There's not going to be us going away from the community board because we fully intend that there's going to be an ongoing regular kind of established planning meeting to go through, okay, this is what we're looking at over the next 6 months, this is what we're looking at in the next 3 months. For instance, because 6 months is a forecast, 3 months is a little more real. And then bringing in our traffic engineers and our consultant, say, okay, this is what we anticipate based on the contractor's plans of what may happen with traffic. And then we'll look at levels of service. I usually get people angry at work because they don't like the fact that I say you can't really do that. It's, you know, it's good for a schedule, it's not good for a community. So we will be working with our working group and however that evolves, to really look at it, you know, in snapshots in real time to come up with different plans as is necessary. Sometimes, you know, things happen on the street that you don't anticipate. If it's a water main or whatever the case might be, we're going to have to be reactive to that. So this logistics office, which is going to be technical communications, community, traffic engineering, will have that ongoing kind of responsibility to figure all of that out.
Okay. I see Charlie has his hand up online. Charlie?
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you everyone for the presentation. I just wanted to inquire about the protected bike lanes on 8th and 9th Avenue, which are really the backbone of our protected bike lane network in our district. And I'm curious just mostly to know what it's going to look like in 12 years, but also what sort of steps will be in place to make sure there's proper detours for those bike lanes as construction and other disruption with the project happens.
Susie, do you want to speak to the bike lane?
Yeah, sure, so.
Let me stand up and
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, not a problem.
It's different. Yeah.
I was just hiding back there, you know? No, so during the construction, we're working out with city DOT in terms of how that's gonna impact the avenues. The intention is to maintain our bike lane infrastructure that exists. That's something we are still working out with the city. So, and as part of the future CLC office, construction logistics office that Glenn talked about, we'll be working with the community to make sure you are aware of what's happening on the detours. Now, for the final condition, what that's gonna look like, we're also working with the city on what their future streetscape is gonna be on 8th and Avenue. That's something that's still in the works. They obviously have a lot of ideas for what they want to do, so we're working with them to make sure between us and them that we're not missing what is needed for this community. So that's a long-winded answer, but short-winded answer is there is attention being paid to the bike lanes that are on the avenues.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Christine?
So I have a few questions. I think none of them are going to surprise you, but the first one is, did we get a confirmation that the trees are going to be between the bollards? This is a question we had asked.
I know you asked me in that comment, there was like, I think part of it also said every 25 feet.
Well, whatever, but it
Yeah,
was between the
okay.
bollards, so they are not in front of the bollard, right?
What
And you
I-
don't have to answer
yeah,
if you don't have.
What I'll say is, I can't guarantee that they're all going to be in between bollards.
Right.
But what we're committing to is, we're going to line around the perimeter of our project with street trees. So depending on in terms of security plans and what criteria we need to meet, it may not be between bollards, it may be, and we have to look at that.
Okay.
You'll be part of that discussion.
And then, related to that, so how many are all the sidewalks around the facility being widened? And by how much? Because we asked that question as part of the remapping and it was not ready yet, but you have, I mean, I know a lot. I think I want to advertise that a lot of them are going to be widened. right?
Yes, a lot.
39th Street. And then there is one on 41st Street, right? But then
On that, with
All right.
more
Yeah, I
detail.
don't think we have specifics, and I think you're right, there is, I know you're right, there's a lot of widenings happening.
yeah,
around
there's a lot of
the facility,
widening, but we
But the
didn't get.
specific plan of that, we don't have it yet, we're still working out all those details with
Okay.
DOT,
All
but
right.
we'll certainly share that once we have that. Yeah.
The bus curbside, the other point we made in our comments is that some of them which are on Dyer Avenue really doesn't work because on Dyer Avenue, there is no sidewalk. So I don't know how you're going to get people stepping in. So we are totally open to work with you to show you different locations. But some of them, in addition to the shared street, the Dyer Avenue is really not a good idea, I would say, because people would go in the street, in the roadway, right? So that's.
So let's take that comment back, we
Right.
can review
It's
that.
just a comment. We made that in our zillion of comments. Sorry about that.
No,
And
we
then,
appreciate the very extensive
Right.
comment.
and then, the final, two final comment, one, again
Yeah,
about
two
the
finals,
sidewalk.
One final and one not final.
Right, the sidewalk along the 30th Street. Our impression that the design you are doing is going to force the sidewalk to be used by the bus customers. And therefore, there will be very little space left for
So,
other people.
right, so the final design of the sidewalk is still pending, we're still
Right.
working that out with
Right.
city DOT. There will be obviously customers that are queuing on the sidewalks waiting to get onto the
Yeah.
buses, but we're trying to make sure that we are getting as wide of a sidewalk
But-
as possible.
But the
On the north side.
alternative was to take those 4 docks, the 4 gates, which are on the west side,
Mhm.
right? And replace them with line gates on the north side of the block.
Right, we've explored that, I think one of the challenges is just the maneuverability of the buses with a tighter space.
Right.
That's something we can continue to look at.
I mean, I
trying
think if
to
we could
find.
do like 3 and 2 or whatever, because we just made that sidewalk so nice. But it's not very big. It's barely 8.
So there is a lot of discussions happening
Right.
about that western portion of
Yes.
30th Street, so we
Okay.
can share more.
So if you could look into it a little further, I think, taking that space is very limited. And it would be kind of an issue. Anyway, and the real final one. The volumes you are showing in the analysis of the DEIS, the existing volumes and the existing delays on 9th Avenue and the network there is really not what's happening today. So I don't know where you got those numbers. It's very possible that the whole city have a map, etc. But we live on 9th Avenue. It shows like everything is green.
I had a
And-
similar, can you
and,
speak
know-
more to how you actually
Right,
produce those?
and so the
current
starting point, right,
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about the end point, but if you start the point with something which is really unrealistic. And that's our feeling and our knowledge right now, that what you are starting on from the avenue is unrealistic, I mean, completely unrealistic.
And those numbers are all within the DEIS, the actual counts that
Yes.
we did. We went out and, we put in video cameras that have
Yeah.
software that count.
I don't know what day you did that, because I can tell you, this is
I
none
don't
of the
remember
days.
offhand, but
It's
yeah.
none of the days where I'm out and I live right on that segment. This is just.
Is it just a 1-day sample? No, we can't.
Well, what we do is we do a 1-day sample at the intersections and then we put tubes in the road that count over 9 days. So we can
Okay.
make sure that that 1-day sample we did is in accordance with what is happening on a.
I don't know what and it is indeed in our DEIS comment, which says this doesn't relate to reality. So if we start with, garbage in, garbage out, if we start with that, we are not going to get to something which makes any sense.
And I understand that, and I stand behind those numbers, and we actually went out in 2000, we did those counts in 2019 before the pandemic. And then we went out there in 2023 and did some other sample counts and everything we adjusted and recorded. So maybe that's something we need to talk, you know.
We can talk offline and you can come visit.
And honestly, that does make me, I mean, I know I'm not an expert in this, and you quite literally are, and so it seems strange, but it does make me a little hesitant to think that your primary sample was done pre-pandemic and you did some testing after, and it might not, you know,
Well, you never know, there can be a
Right,
day,
right.
there are days, you know, there are days like that, it's very
So
unpredictable.
I'd be interested in having a longer conversation about it.
Yeah.
But since you're up here, my main question, which I'm sure is a predictable question to you, which is, to the extent your traffic predictions incorporated, congestion pricing into the model, how do the governor's recent decision, affect your modeling? And the question actually is for anyone, who spoke, if there's anything you spoke on today that would be affected by the delay of or cancellation of congestion pricing.
The way we looked at congestion pricing is that, anything to do with the congestion pricing would reduce the volume. So we kind of assumed the worst case scenario. So by them canceling or postponing or whatever happens with congestion pricing, it really doesn't change our numbers. If congestion pricing were implemented, we would probably see lower volumes than what we were showing in our PEI.
And just for complete clarity, exactly to John's point, to get that kind of most conservative analysis case, we weren't limited by reality since we're doing an environmental review.
Yeah.
We assumed that there is congestion pricing in terms of transit trips, so they are increased. And then we assume that there is not congestion pricing for traffic trips, so that
That's helpful.
they are the same.
That's part of it, yeah. Okay.
Look at the most conservative case for both vehicle trips, but also bus trips, right? So, yes.
So,
Yeah, one second, I have one more question and then we'll open to the public, sorry, just on traffic, sorry, one more, that you had. Limited numbers, it's just the building of these two commercial buildings that you would think adds the limited traffic that you're predicting, is that I can't think of anything else that would do it, but you're just picturing people going to work in these buildings adding to the limited traffic, right? There's nothing about a bus stop.
Sometimes.
There's also,
What else is there?
there's the retail, which we've considered as part of the development. There's, you know, different components within the bus terminal itself that we've all considered as part of those numbers.
Right.
Taxi trips, some of those numbers are increased number of taxi trips, given Black Card.
Okay. And with the conservative numbers that you just talked about, you did not incorporate people, hopefully, this is a brand new bus terminal, hopefully more people are inspired to take the bus. I saw you have the bus numbers going up, and hopefully people do, you know, it works as intended, and people, if it's an easy choice for them, they'll make that choice. But at least for our purposes now, your numbers don't include cars coming off the road because people are taking buses.
No. We have considered, those are New Jersey, mostly New Jersey Transit coming in. We are within the city, so we've considered, what's happening in the city, and we've used, NIMTEC's projections and New York City's projections, so we've considered all that.
Okay, thank you very much. Opening up to the public, I know we have one member of the public with us in person, and then we'll go online, and then we will take a vote. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So look, I believe in the end product and the result that we're all looking to achieve. With, of course, some additions and changes to it, but that's a land use issue. But I'm very concerned about how we get there. And I think Christine was saying this, is that traffic conditions in our area existing are far from perfect. In fact, it's a daily disaster. I live in the 30s south of the bus terminal. So when I look at the interim platforms again, which I believe are necessary, and I'm really gonna hold you guys to the public space that you're gonna build there. 37, 38, 38, 39 are now gonna be places where buses are unloading. So we have massive increased pedestrian activity on 9th and perhaps 10th Avenue during that interim phase. And we also have buses where they weren't previously. How do we survive this stage? The other thing is, and I hadn't seen the plans for 30th Street. It's the first time I'm learning them, and I know it's not part of this project. Is that an interim project that coincides with bus terminal redevelopment? Or is this something the port will say, hey, we kind of need this, this is great, we want to leave it here post completion of the project?
So I'll do the second question first, right, so 30th Street, and Susie, you wanna come up for this as well, right? Two things, one is, let's assume that this bus terminal replacement did not happen, right? That would be a travesty, I think, for everyone in the room. But, you know, that would be necessary regardless, right, whether this project happened or not. That's why it's sort of, the technical term is as independent utility, right, it sort of needs to happen one way or the other. But the other critical.
A permanent addition, or is that just during the
So,
phase?
I don't think we've thought through exactly what could happen there post, phase two.
Okay.
You know, it depends, right? But what's also critical there is not just the bus operations, but teeing off that intersection, which is helpful for bus operations, but it also makes the pedestrian experience so much better, right? Because right now, crossing over here, you're kind of taking your life into your own hands sometimes, right? So this will make it a much safer pedestrian-friendly experience. You know, what happens after phase two, which is 2032 thereabouts, right? You know, I think it's to be determined. As you saw, like, you know, the new bus terminal will have excess capacity, you know, through at least 2040. But so will there be a need for these additional gates? So right now, we're not entirely sure what could happen here, but it's something that we are thinking about.
I mean, but just one of the things that, you know, why this community board is okay with the ramp structure and the massive staging facility and the terminal, we're talking 3 avenues, is because there was this promise of no bus traffic on our streets. And this is bus traffic on our streets, which I think as a community, we could live with if this was something that got us through the project. But not something that we ultimately live with, especially because the Highline Park is an amenity to our neighborhood. That having idling buses underneath it isn't something.
No, it's a great point, right? And that's why, you know, we're not committed to keeping bus operations here, you know, post 2032. But what could happen here after that? We're still thinking about that internally. So, you know, I think we'll need to sort of continue to engage on that topic. And sort of, you know, think about what options there could be.
You have to answer to Christine.
Well, I thought that the set on the right side was going to be developed, right? So you would have no incentive to.
Say that again?
The east side of the.
Yeah, this side?
This east side is the base for the building. I mean, it's potentially for a development, right?
Well, there is a, you know, so
No,
we
we
have.
know that, right?
That's this tower here.
Right, but I'm talking about after the build, after.
Oh, I see, yeah.
After, obviously, the one on the right.
Right.
Would become a development site.
It's a potential development site, right? Again, I don't think we've.
But I think it's a good point. I mean, we'd love to have a commitment that it's not going to become and remain a bus. Parking, loading, et cetera.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was getting at.
No, we hear you.
That's.
Yeah, we hear you. And it's a good point.
That's kind of a.
And like I said, I mean, it's hard to make that commitment right now just because we want to preserve some flexibility. However, what I will say is, you know, it's difficult to think of a scenario where that could be needed for ongoing bus operations. But again, it's hard to sort of say 8 years from now that, you know, this or that will or won't happen there.
But the point though is that if there is even a remote possibility that it stays, then configuring it properly, it's really important because we need to have a good sidewalk protected there.
Yeah, I mean, that we've heard you loud and clear about not keeping bus operations on local streets. I mean, that's exactly why we built out the staging and storage facility, right? We brought the intercity buses into the terminal, so we heard you loud and clear. And we're hearing you at this point as well about the future of 30th Street, so we hear you.
Right. Then part one of the question was living through or already.
Yeah, I mean, look, and then And I'm happy to have some of my colleagues jump in here as well, but what I don't wanna do is sugarcoat the fact that it's going to be a challenging time during the construction project, right? It's a lot of construction happening in a very dense environment, where you're also trying to make sure that, you know, the Trans-Hudson traffic on the buses is able to maintain, because it's so critical to the economy of New York, right? So it's not going to be, you know, an easy time, but you have our commitment, right? That we're gonna do everything we can to manage the construction, manage the traffic, manage the pedestrian traffic and all of that. And do that in a way that allows us to be nimble and flexible and respond to changing conditions. But also do it in a way that's engaging with the community, right? You know, at the last meeting, you know, we were asked, you know, what will be the ongoing dialogue once we're done with the environmental review process, the ULURP process, and, you know, the engagement with the community board and the working group is going to remain, and all the stakeholders, right, will remain, because, you know, we recognize this is gonna be a challenging project. And even once the new terminal is finished, right, there will still be ongoing engagement and dialogue as well about the operation of the new facility, but we do recognize it's gonna be difficult for the, you know, the people living here, the people working here. And we'll do the best that we can to make it a little less difficult, right? Is there anything else that folks wanna add?
But there are no immediate like plans to say, we're gonna expand sidewalks temporarily on Ninth Avenue. Because those are narrow sidewalks to begin with, that's a very different street than Eighth Avenue or Seventh Avenue, which has a lot of
The
pedestrians.
DOT has a plan.
The DOT has a plan, okay.
So
great.
I'll say this, when it comes to like during construction conditions, things like temporary sidewalk widenings or making a shared street where you're actually removing a traffic lane to allow for additional pedestrian street, those are all on the table and being looked at.
Oh, we can do that on Ninth Avenue.
We're looking at it.
No, Ninth
All on the table are being looked at.
But Hirsch is completely right, you know, it will be challenging, and I think if there's any comfort to take, it's that, the bus companies share that too. When we speak to New Jersey Transit, they're not excited about the notion of operating curbside. So I'm hoping, and I don't want to sound too optimistic, that between the bus companies, the Port Authority, City DOT, that they're gonna keep a very tight rein on things and have every incentive possible to try to really manage the buses as tightly as possible. So they don't have to hear from you, so they don't have to hear from the
I
construction.
think the thing is managing buses is only one part of the equation. Is that when you have 250,000 people exiting where they didn't exit before, that is gonna create not only pedestrian conditions, but traffic conditions. And so that was what my question was. And I do trust the Port Authority will be able to manage that. I think that we have to anticipate the impact of that.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I want to just add a little bit.
Sure.
So Seth said everything's on the table and anything is on the table. And this whole group, as first mentioned, has to deliver this project. From the technical side, we're building it, but I can't do that without our government affairs folks, without our legal department, without the engineering group, without the traffic engineers. And so this is anecdotal to what you said. You know, I remember back in the first few days after 9/11, and I had a job offer to go into the private sector, and I was going to take that job. And I was told by some folks then, go back downtown and figure this out. I never dealt with a terrorist activity. I was 31 then, about maybe 30, and they were like, you gotta go figure out what we're going to do with the World Trade Center. And there was just a handful of us. I had no map. I had no guidance on how to deal with something like that. The thing I learned the most with having done the World Trade Center project, the entire World Trade Center project, and restoring PATH in 2004, way ahead of schedule, because of the urgency of what that central business district in Lower Manhattan needed in terms of Trans-Hudson mass transit was, and building a site of almost 10 million square feet of office space, a memorial space, transportation, while we're moving people through, impacting people's lives, you know, not because we wanted to do this, but the only way we were able to actually really do it was to keep an open mind, not have this idea that it has to be in stone today, because that's where you fail. And being able to communicate work with, receive information from a community. I just heard from the former chair of community board one today, because she was going to an event. And these are people I've become friends with and will know forever. And it's because they guided me, it's their neighborhood, and I listened, we listened, and there's going to be times where it's, like Hirsch said, it's going to be very difficult. But the flexibility and the open mind to come up with plans that I may not be able to think of, or my colleagues may not be able to think of, but you might, or Christine might, or whomever on the community board might see it in a way that's different than we do, that's what's going to enable us to be able to succeed in what is definitely going to be, a difficult and challenging time.
And I think it's just the last thing I'll just note is, for what it's worth, we've actually built a pretty good track record in terms of managing large projects like this. Between the World Trade Center, between LaGuardia, between Newark, and now JFK. We recognize that we need to build projects in a way that delivers world-class, facilities, but also is mindful of community impacts, is mindful of customer impacts, of traffic impacts, and all of that. So we've taken a lot of the lessons that we've learned from all of those projects, and we're deploying them on this project as well.
Thank you very much for that. We have one more question online, and then we're gonna return to the committee just to move this along. Miriam, can we move Miriam over? Janine, we'll hear from Miriam briefly. And then, I was a bit negligent, I forgot what the vote we were gonna need to take is, which I will explain to you after Miriam speaks.
Jesse, just a comment?
Yeah.
In regards to what you just said, important. Are you documenting this? This is for future generations? Is that
Documenting what?
are you filming the process as it goes?
In a construction project?
Construction, the meetings. This is a great piece of work for the city, historical.
Well, we're not filming this, you guys are recording.
I'm still not recording, but somebody's gonna go write the blog. Seriously, this is an important piece of work that we're doing, and for future generations, people who are civic government and everything else and construction going forward. This should be on film somehow.
We can all say we were there then in that hot room where the AC just came back on. All right, Miriam, go ahead, but if you don't mind.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah.
I was gonna get something on the radar. As we learned at Penn Station, there was a paucity of seats in the waiting room. We've all seen the videos of people lying on the floor, sitting, and some of that, we think may have been to restrict the homeless from congregating there. Port Authority, I have my own memories of lying on the floor. My husband taught at Montclair. We sometimes took the DeCamp bus. There was no place to sit, no place to wait. He often would get online, and since I had the bad back, I would lie on the floor until we could get into the bus. It was a horrible situation, as I remember, at Port Authority. I also remember these little folding seats that were attached to the pillars to make people comfortable. They were very narrow, and as we've learned the term hostile architecture, I think they were meant to be uncomfortable so the homeless wouldn't get too comfortable there. What is being thought about in terms of not repeating the same mistakes as was at Port Authority and what happened at Penn Station? And it's an accessibility issue, it's a disability issue, and just comfort to sit while we wait.
Great question. Thank you, Miriam.
So we're looking at seating as well, and looking at, what could be needed to accommodate customers and folks that might be waiting for buses. All of those plans have not been quite finalized yet, but we do recognize that there will be some people who are waiting longer periods of time for their buses. And, for example, some of the intercity buses, they might be waiting more than their New Jersey Transit commuter buses. So we do recognize that. I don't think we have specific plans about, how much seating and where the seating will be and all of that. They'll take into consideration operational needs, security needs, but also again, not creating a place for people to kind of just congregate. So all being reviewed and determined now.
Okay, but I do think it's worth, we stay engaged with you on that
Yeah.
as well, because I do think it is a disability rights issue of not having any seating in the new Penn Station, and we don't, Amira makes an excellent point, I think. All right, that concludes the public, part of this. So moving back now to committee, discussion, I forgot what exactly we were voting on. I thought we were just like, oh, we're voting on we approve, we don't approve, but really what the land use committees are writing a letter, and if we have comments that we would like to add to the letter, that's what we'd be voting on,
Well,
so.
The land use committee and transportation typically
Right.
write the letter on the ULUR.
Right,
Right, so we are going to write it, but we have already written an enormous letter on the EIS, so we have most of our comments already in there.
yeah,
There's nothing except for a few of the comments and
Right.
questions that we have raised today that we may want to emerge and add to what we have done, but most of that letter that is coming in is going to be what was in the DEIS plus zoning issues which have been raised by the land use committee, which are not our zoning issue essentially. So that they will provide that information. We will provide everything we put in the DEIS. We will add the comments we have recorded today, right, from all of you. And then we have put in the Dropbox a list of mitigation community benefits priorities that the working group has developed, which is in a draft form. And we are going to ask you to give us your comments on that, say whether we have missed anything or whether the order is not what you want. And then we will regroup with the rest of the working group and finalize it for the 25th of July letter, where we will expose, publicly the whole priorities. So that's what the process is going to be. So we have your comments, we're going to put them in.
where I go was failing to take down what you were saying as you were, but I'll go back online and it'll be fine, and we'll incorporate it into the letter and the comments, but other than that, I mean, we still do need to take a vote
We're
on
taking
that.
a vote, right?
On
the ULURP.
yeah, for the ULURP, for that we will incorporate all the comments and based on the letter, the DIS letter that was previously passed.
Yes.
So assuming we have a motion.
We have a motion. Right.
All those in favor of the motion, we are at quorum now, by the way, so.
Well, it's consensus. We have quorum now?
Yeah, we have quorum now, yeah.
Oh,
We've got two more rides.
That's
I'm
not
told we have 9 now.
No,
Only 9,
that's
1,
not
2,
enough.
3, 4, 5.
no, I think it's a consensus vote.
Oh, well,
Right. We have
We will
so
deal with
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We need 8.
shoot. 2, wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, well,
Yeah, no.
either way.
The Charlie doesn't count. We have to have the quorum in person.
We don't have 8.
And then you can vote.
What's that?
There's 8 people.
Yeah, we need.
Public member.
Where'd you see
How
it?
many people are on the committee in total?
It just went up as a problem, so,
Eight is more than half of 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I don't know how to
Yeah.
count.
yeah.
That's a big problem right there. Oh, Tina Martin.
There you
That's
go. Okay,
right. Okay, good. So we have a vote. And please look at the Dropbox and look at that information, and you can send, not copy everybody, but just send to Jesse and I.
Yes.
Right? Because it's not a discussion, just send your comment directly. And then we'll incorporate them for the mitigation prioritization, right?
thanks. And there we have it.
Very, very
Thank you all very much. Thank you for everyone in the room. We really appreciate it. We've got kind of stuff in here, but we're happy that you're here.
Big.
Thank you very much. And the process is moving forward. Good, thank you. We'll be in touch. I'm sure we'll see a lot of each other over the coming years, so. We're gonna let everyone clear out of here. Alan, Elizabeth, thank you so much for your patience. Just give everyone a minute to get out of here, and I'll tee you guys up. Sorry. Thank you for coming. Really. It was good. Yeah. Back. Saying you're back. Thank you for coming.
So, not to be there, yeah. Where's the one I can't sort? MCB4, anyone who wanted to do.
So work at New York City?
Special permit.
Yeah, we're not gonna want. We don't want any. This is like a monstrous thing. We don't want, so the difference is we don't want even. At least that's my.
From the
voices down.
Because I thought there was a discrepancy of like, they thought the way the special permit, which is modified specifically just for this project. Is,
Yeah.
you know, it was written just because it straddles so many different zoning districts, and so that's the way that it was written, and it doesn't allow like future as of right. Busing.
I'll give you a call offline,
Okay.
and just so that we can clarify. Okay.
Thank you for bringing that
so
up.
much.
Thank you. All right, we are going to move right on because we do have still a lot to go, and we have presenters who have been patiently waiting online. And so certainly grateful. I'm gonna just move forward even as people are getting water and Annalyn and Zoe, excuse me, sorry, Annalyn and Elizabeth, I see you both. Thank you again very, very much for your patience. For the record, I did tell them that prior presentation would be over around 7:15, so I'm about an hour off. And so I do apologize. And so we are very grateful you're here. Let me just remind everyone where we are, what we're doing. We have, as a committee, heard presentations on the West 23rd Street, lack of elevators in the subway stations. Obviously, you know, the next capital plan for the MTA was going to be dependent on congestion pricing and the funds coming out of congestion pricing. But when asked whether we should pause the presentation, I thought we should not. We should go ahead because even though we do not know where the funding is coming from, I still think it's important that we keep the pressure up and keep hearing from those who might be affected and impacted by one, not having elevators at West 23rd Street stops, but who could most benefit from having West 23rd elevators there. And so with us this evening, to speak very briefly to us, and again, so grateful that you're here. We have Annalyn, Courtney, and Elizabeth Tarr, who are both representatives of Selis Manor, which is a center for the visually impaired on West 23rd Street. And they are here to speak to us and just give us a little bit of background and a little bit of their own experience. And I will turn it over to you, Annalyn. Thank you so much.
Okay, hi. So I'm an orientation and mobility instructor at Vision Services for the Blind. Until recently, I also served on the MTA's advisory committee on transit accessibility. And I'm joined by Elizabeth, who is a resident of Selis Manor. So there are 247 residents of Selis Manor. 150 of the residents are blind or visually impaired. Part of my job is to teach people who are blind or visually impaired how to travel to Selis Manor so they can be part of our community. In an average month, we serve 259 people who come to participate in various programs, including classes, meals, case assistance, benefits, and special events. I also orient new residents to Selis Manor and to the neighborhood and teach travel skills so they can commute to work, shop, attend appointments, visit families. One of the advantages of living in New York City is the number of options when planning to get to a place of interest. One can walk, take the bus, take the subway, use Access-a-Ride. Without elevators, the subways are not available to many people, and they may choose to use Access-a-Ride instead. This adds a lot of cost to the MTA, and it adds a lot of time to the riders who sometimes have to take circuitous routes because these are shared rides. So many of our participants may come less frequently once they are unable to use the stairs anymore. Recently, I had a client who was coming from 125th Street and Broadway on the 1 train. She stopped coming when she could no longer use the stairs, and it was a long bus ride to come from, you know, all the way down Broadway and then to Selis Manor at 23rd Street. So I'll leave it there and I'll let Elizabeth take over.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. And I love New York City. I'm not a native here, but I've lived here the longest now out of all the places that I've lived. And one reason that I love New York City is the transportation. It's not a perfect system, but it is a very vast system. And I'm here to advocate for equal access and ease of commute for everyone. Most certainly, and very significantly, I'm advocating for people in wheelchairs or with mobility impairments, challenges, people that use crutches and walkers. And I believe that elevators are not only beneficial for people with disabilities, but they are universally beneficial and advantageous for our growing aging population, as Annalyn was talking about. And let's see, I had a whole list in my head. People using strollers, you know, babies with strollers, and let's see what else. Oh, people with luggage, you know, it would just make life a lot easier for people who are commuting and using our wonderful transit system. And perhaps it could even address some of the congestion issues, maybe lighten some of the, decrease some of the congestion. As Annalyn was saying, if more people could take the subway as opposed to using Access-a-Ride, then it would definitely improve the quality of life, give a lot of time back to people, which there's no price on time and quality of life. And yes, there are buses that have wheelchair ramps and things like that, but I agree, buses are well, they're nice, but they're very slow, and there's a lot of traffic in New York City, as we all know. And perhaps elevators could even help with decreasing traffic in the stations. More people may enjoy using the elevators, along with those who really need it, and decreasing the traffic, you know, on the stairs and the bottlenecking that can happen sometimes. And let's see, what else was I going to say? Sorry about that. So I think, you know, it covers, it's beneficial for everyone, you know, whether it be from infancy or to very advanced in years. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you, Helen. Elizabeth, are you a resident of Selis Manor, or do you travel there?
Yes, I am a resident now. I've lived here for about a year.
Okay, great. And do you currently use any of the subways around West 23rd to navigate your way through the city, or do you primarily rely on Accessorize to get around, or the buses, as you said?
Oh, I do. I use the 1 train quite a bit, as well as the F train, sometimes the 7 train,
Right. Okay, and my own experience, I don't know if you agree, but the 1 train, right, sometimes, the crowds coming up from up the staircase, I'm sure can be overwhelming if you're not able to see. I'm just trying to, and for you to have an elevator there would make your experience of getting to the 1 train significantly less daunting, I imagine, correct?
That is correct. The staircases are very narrow, and people, pushing their way and trying to, go up and down the wrong way. So.
Right. Even I have to like physically swat people on the way as I'm going down those stairs.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Ellen or Elizabeth? We're so generous to share their time with us this evening. I know one, go ahead.
Which stations are, have elevators now along 23rd Street?
None.
None?
None on
The
on the
one?
west side.
Does the
No?
6 train?
Maybe on the east side. I don't think it does. So I don't know if on the east side it does, but I don't think it does. But none of us are on the west side. No.
That would be interesting as a statement.
Yeah.
That we have none on,
Yeah, no,
on
it's
a
a good
cross,
point. It is a
on
good
the
point.
on such a big cross down.
Right.
Route,
Yeah.
that there is no station which
Yeah.
has a elevator.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Park Avenue maybe.
Well, like,
We
I
need
mean,
to find-
we should look into it, and as far as people.
Look at a map.
That's what I will look at that.
Okay.
Ellen, I know when we spoke earlier, you had also mentioned just the number of, clients, who, come in from Long Island or New Jersey and having to navigate their way from Penn Station to Selis Manor is incredibly difficult as it is right now. Can you speak a little bit more to that?
So, the opening up or the additions of Penn Station have been very helpful in the long run, but it has made it difficult for people to know kind of where, a totally blind person to know where they are when they come up from up the stairs. And there used to be just one elevator, and now there are several elevators that come up from the platforms. But we figure out a way, and then most people are traveling through. I usually send people along the Hilton passageway, which is kind of under 31st Street, and take the 1 train from there. So they're riding the 1 train down, and then it stairs into the 1 train at 34th Street if they're using the Hilton passageway, and then stairs again when they get to 23rd. And somebody who really has difficulty with the stairs, they can take the elevator off the platform, one of the elevators now off the platform at Penn Station, and then it's going to have to be a bus.
Okay, that's all I thought. All right, does anyone have any questions? Vinny, I see Miriam's hand is raised. Janine, can you move Miriam over, please? We'll hear from Miriam.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, there are 5 subways on 23rd Street. 1 is accessible in Park Avenue South, and number 6. So there is 1, but that's insufficient. I'm just have a just curious question to Elizabeth, because I see the Bay Bridge as the backdrop to you, and I'm wondering if you're from San Francisco, which to me was transformative because the BART system is accessible. It's new and it was built accessible, but I had never seen people with wheelchairs before on the subway, and it was a major shift in my thinking in my life of what was possible. Are you from San Francisco?
Oh, that's wonderful. No, I'm not. And I thank you for telling me because I forgot that I had that as my my backdrop.
Okay, a friend was also just visiting. Okay.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, Ellen. Thank you so much for being here. As I've told you, it's important that we continue to have people provide testimony about their need for elevators at these stations, to do so publicly on recorded sessions. So having you here, even briefly, is very important, and so we very much appreciate it. Thank you so much, and again, thank you so much for your patience. Again, I know my prediction was timing was not the most accurate. All right, have a good night to both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Okay. All right, we are moving on to a committee discussion and vote, and then we're gonna have another presentation and then back to a couple. So we've still got a lot to get through. Number 3 on our agenda this evening is a joint letter from the community boards regarding congestion pricing. This is the one I emailed you about yesterday. It's in the Dropbox. I'm hoping we can keep our conversation relatively brief just because everyone's had a chance to read it. But as background, Christina and I were invited to participate in a discussion around linking forces with all of the community boards who are beneath 59th Street, who are the most impacted by, would have been the most benefit from congestion pricing and most impacted by its delay/cancellation. And so we obviously readily agreed to join that effort, and Christine and I were on calls and have been on email chains commenting on the draft language, as it were. At this point, we are, I think, the second to last to actually vote on the letter. Several other community boards have either voted on it from their transportation committees or voted on it at their full boards and have already approved it. For us, it is mostly just a matter of voting whether we want to sign on to the letter before it goes out. And just to remind me, will our full board have a chance to? It goes out before, yeah. So our vote, we will be signing on as the transportation committee of community board 4. The full board will have to ratify it afterwards, but the letter is going to go out before that happens. So it'll just be.
And it would go out because the MTA board is meeting on the 24th and the 26th. So what the idea was to get that joint letter getting to all the MTA board members in advance of their vote, and have as much impact as possible. Yeah. So therefore, we would send the letter based and we have the approval of our chair to do that. We would send the approval subject to ratification, and then it would be on the agenda of the full board, but will be later, and hopefully it's ratified. If it's not ratified, then we'll have a sent letter saying, no, it's not ratified.
Yeah.
And that has happened before.
Which could happen, right? And it does remind me, by the way, obviously, right, the thrust of this letter is basically being fully in support of the congestion pricing plan, wanting to see it go through. And but that doesn't mean that you heard me speak on this as an individual or the last community board. I don't take it for granted that people have different opinions on this in this committee, and if you should feel comfortable to vote however you would like.
Yeah, and one of those sentences that went around between the community board was saying, in the future, we fully expect that the congestion pricing scheme could be modified based on the findings and based on, environmental findings, based on whatever findings it is. So it definitely says, we are not signing for this for life. We're signing for this to get in and then learn how to modify it later on if needed. And so that's what other board that were not 100% comfortable to say, hey, we want it. They were saying, yeah, we want it, but there needs to be a refinement of that.
Can I just ask one
Yeah, of
question? There's just this one sentence that's I'm curious what's behind it. Opposing any alternative plan cobbled together haphazardly to make up for the budget shortfall. What was is there?
The issue was that after the governor paused the congestion pricing, she tried to get the legislature to vote for some kind of taxes to get some money for the MTA. So she could say, right, she could say, you know, oh, we paused that, but we didn't hurt the MTA. And everybody was very adamant that she should do that because just doing the tax didn't do the job. The job is less pollution, less congestion, less all of that. And the tax was uniquely on businesses in New York City. So New York City would have borne all of it.
It is worth, Liam, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, and I know you cannot vote on this issue,
But
to the extent, if there's any more color you wanna add as an individual, not, this is a hard, I don't even know, maybe you just wanna say no comment. Yeah, this is hard, maybe you wanna say no comment at all, I don't know if you can speak in your individual capacity. Okay.
So that was the general issue. So the elected, some of us, including me, called the elected and said, don't give up, because it was tremendous pressure to pass something, anything. And we said, no.
So right now, there is nothing, and therefore, you know, why, you know, like when we're talking about the next capital plan for the MTA, they don't have the money right now for the current capital plan because congestion, so.
If you can't vote though, we can only then.
No, quorum is just a higher.
No, quorum is quorum, and then
You can
vote.
vote, yeah.
It's separate.
I do have a statement to read from Samir, the chair of CB5, who was with us and then had to leave, but wanted, very brief. Very brief, I just feel better, so I'll read on behalf of Samir. Samir of CB5 was in attendance, but had to leave, but he wanted to say, I'm Samir, the chair of CB5. I wanted to encourage CB4 to join CB5 and CB6 on this letter. It's critical that we don't give precedent in the future for anyone and to cancel a project that became the law years ago and has had thousands of public comments and dozens of public meetings. This isn't about congestion pricing itself, but how it got canceled with no input. I know it's tempting to change the letter to be CB4 specific. Well, we seem okay. But our CBs, our community boards will be stronger when we speak with a unified voice, and I encourage you to sign on as is. Thank you, Samir.
So, any question?
Yeah, are there any questions? And then I'll open to the public. Are there any members of the public? I see one, Jonathan Wiseman. If there's any members of the public who'd like to speak on this congestion pricing letter, please raise your hand and Denise will move you over. Oh wait, and you wanted me to add, thank you for all your hard work in considering this critical issue.
But we spent a few hours on it.
I was on the train. Janine, are we moving Jonathan over?
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Here we go. Oh, yeah.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. Hey, how are you? Good evening, everybody. So just a quick question. You mentioned that this letter, is it available for us to see it? I couldn't see this letter. Where would I find it? Is that
Oh, it should have been available in our, is it not?
I don't know, the Dropbox doesn't get.
Publicly.
Publicly, right.
That is a fair point. I imagine it would be on then the CB5 or CB6.
Did you have a email? Why don't you
Yeah,
send
and
it
I'm
to-
happy to
do we
forward
have-
it to you now.
Yeah, I won't
But it
send
is-
it to anybody else. I'll sign an NDA.
Yeah, no,
I think it's in the
don't know.
Dropbox. Is the Dropbox not available to the public?
Yeah, I thought it was.
I believe the Dropbox is. It's in the Dropbox.
I raised that to Janine.
Janine, all right, so Janine, can we make sure that Jonathan gets it and then try to make sure that it goes, it's publicly posted somewhere. But right now, I do know since CB5 and CB6 already passed it, I imagine.
Why don't you read the major resolution, right? There are three major points.
Yes. Okay.
That's, everything else is like introductory and.
Yeah.
Setting the stage, there are three.
There are three major points. I'll just read the main thrust of the letter. Towards that, we emphatically, one, urge Governor Hochul to adhere to the existing law and rescind her recent decision to direct the MTA to indefinitely cease the implementation of congestion pricing and instead let it proceed. Two, call upon the MTA board and New York State DOT Commissioner to exercise their independence and adhere to the fiduciary duty to ensure the long-term financial stability and improvement of New York City's transit system by voting for and or ensuring implementation of congestion pricing without delay. And three, implore local, state, and federal officials to work toward the immediate implementation of congestion pricing and oppose any alternative plan cobbled together haphazardly to make up the budget shortfall in an unsustainable way.
Yeah,
And-
that's it.
And then just a quick question you guys mentioned, which was actually very interesting. You said that this is kind of, if the plan goes through, you're open to changes as it grows organically. Is that something mentioned in the letter or no?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. All right. Thank you. I guess if you can send me the thing via email would be
We'll make
great.
sure you get it. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Janine, do you mind coordinating? And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So with
We have a
that,
motion?
do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion. All those in favor of co-signing this letter on behalf of the Transportation Committee of CB4?
Good.
All those no? All those present not eligible? All those abstaining? Thank you.
So, PMA.
Good. Thank you all very much. Very excited by that. And it's great, actually. I think it's a really good of support that is coming out of this committee, relatively unanimous. That's great. So we're unanimous unless those who are eligible. All right, moving on to item 4. The New York City Pride Parade route. Believe it or not, we have a Pride Parade in the city. You probably know about it. You probably attended. In my mind, it is the longest parade in the world. Since it starts at like 10 a.m. and nobody can tell us when it finishes, but my experience is what, like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. it finishes?
The people are not finishing.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, I don't know, I usually go around and move silence, so I love marching, so.
We ended
So I'll let you, I think we were just told that you had some update that you wanted to provide us. We're not actually sure how this year might be different than other years, but the floor is yours to update our committee on what's in store for this year's Pride Parade.
Well, hey y'all, I'm seeing some familiar faces and familiar names in the room. I'm Zoe, my pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Associate Director of Partnerships and External Relations at New York City Pride, but some of you know me as the anxious little girl who was planning the march way back pre-pandemic with all of you. There are no insightful, crazy updates. I have a beautiful presentation that walks you through all of our cross streets and our timings for all of our events for the organization. However, it's all the same. So I don't know if you want me to run you through the presentation.
No,
I don't think, I mean, like, no, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, and I don't mean to be.
No, this is funny.
Yeah,
No, we all felt, no.
But I mean, I mean, if there are certain issues you want to highlight for us, I think that would be important, or maybe if there's something historically that has been an issue you've worked out this year, or if there's anything different this year, if there's nothing, if there's anything that might be right, that just rises to the top of this presentation that you want to share with us, we will absolutely happily accept that.
Of course, there is one thing that I do want to highlight to the group, but before we dive into that chat, I do want to reassure all of you that I'm going to share a presentation to be reshared out with you that will reiterate very clean fashion of our pedestrian crossings, where are the portos, all the things that I know that this grouping cares about. But it's what we're used to. We've been doing this together for a little bit. The one thing I want to highlight for the community board is the work that we are doing with our small businesses. Small businesses that affect this community board, but the other community boards that this March route impacts. We're working diligently to ensure there is access to those spaces, specifically in what we refer to as our dispersal area, which consists of 7th Avenue from 16th Street between 8th and 6th Avenue up to 19th Street. There has been conflicting information that we've received from permitting offices, city agencies about access to small business and how we communicate that out to small business and then what happens on the day of. And I wanted to reassure this community board that I've gotten in touch with the new, I'm sorry, his moniker escapes me, if it's chief or sergeant of precinct 10, recently appointed. We've had deep conversations about how some of our restaurants and bars that have kind of been like barricaded in should be accessible to the community. So I wanted to let you know that I'm trying to push for progress there as we are directly in touch with those businesses hand in hand, that they should be accessible to anybody who wishes to be there.
Okay.
If there's anything you can do to help us push this message, we would definitely appreciate it.
And go ahead.
Yeah, where's the end of the parade?
Is it 14th, 15th on 7th, right?
The official like end is 14th. 15th Street is more like an NYPD blocker. And then we start putting people back out into the world between 16 and 19. And we only send them west from 7th. So from 7th Avenue, they're going to turn left. And once they hit 8th, welcome to the world.
So why isn't it coming up on 9th Avenue?
I was wondering the same thing,
All
but I
the
guess
way
it's
to
just.
15.
We're wondering the same thing.
Because I mean, there is such a, concentration
Right.
of people there that it doesn't make, I mean, I
It's
understand it's
different.
difficult because you're going up and then there is a big area which is commercial and nothing, right?
Yeah.
And then you would have that area. So I don't know, you may want to think about another day, like people do the fireworks on the east side and the west side. Maybe you have a different route another year, and alternate routes.
I definitely feel like there's a lot of voices at that table, but I appreciate the sentiment. This for us has felt very efficient because of public transportation. So like that 8th Avenue subway line for these masses that we put back out from 7th Avenue.
So the subway, goes up on 50th Street and on 58th Street and 42nd Street. I mean, I don't know. It just feels bizarre to me. Oh, even though it's
Well, it's the historic
historical.
district, yeah, it's the district.
It's
They
historical.
don't have to,
Right.
but yeah.
But anyway.
Okay.
But ultimately, I just wanted to make myself available if anybody had
No,
questions.
it's so helpful, and honestly, we will accept your presentation and we will make it publicly available so that if people can find it, and we'll, send it out to our listservs here, because that is important, and I've actually never seen it myself, I've never seen the layout ahead of time, so that's very helpful, because I often get stuck behind the wrong set of barricades, and I'm, frustrated.
The only other thing I would want to highlight amongst this grouping is, like I said, we take supporting our local community very seriously. And we've created, and you'll see it in the presentation, a one sheet that we've actually been sending. We're going to be sending volunteers out into the world to all the businesses and apartment buildings, being like, this is what to expect. If you have questions, we have a helpline for you. So we really are trying to get that communication out so that nobody feels disrupted or confused.
Great, amazing, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I do one more brief question that I just remembered, and then I see that there's Carrie B has a hand raised in the public, so Janine, if you want to move Carrie over, that'd be very helpful. My question actually, every year I know safety is a priority. This year, I know that there have been there's a new threat out there, or we're being told to be extra vigilant this year, in terms of safety and targeting of LGBT events, in the US. Are there any extra precautions being taken this year that haven't been previously, or what you can discuss at least?
Absolutely. I mean, we take safety and security seriously every year. But there are, it's 2024. Is what it is. It's a highly politically charged environment this season. And we are taking that very seriously. So in terms of people who are participating within the event, we're instituting, or for those of you who've known me for a long time, I see some faces in the room. We're reinstituting a credentialing process for every single participant. So anybody within the function is going to be having a wristband that is very much specific to like their timing, their placement, and who they are. Which for those of you who are like, this thing ended at midnight. It won't, because now there's no random people joining it, right? We're very much tabs on it all. It's going to flow really well. Additionally, as a community organization, though we are hand in hand in partnership with NYPD, FBI, and all the acronyms that scare some people, we also lean very deeply into community organizing. So we have created volunteer teams that are very beefed up, that are focused on de-escalation of community issues without having to pull in law enforcement. However, like I said, we're hand in hand with that law enforcement. But there's a chain of command. And ultimately, we want to be able to organize our folks and make everybody feel safe and secure without making people feel threatened by like a heightened level of uniformed officers, depending on your sensitivities.
Great. Thank you very much. That was a very comprehensive answer. I appreciate it. Carrie. Go ahead. Carrie B, the floor is yours.
She's on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi all, hi Zoe. I live on 16th Street between 6th and 7th Avenue. I am also on the West 16th Block Association. I am one of the officers on there, and we had a meeting last week, and this was a hot topic. As you know, parades lend itself to quite a lot of things. I have several questions for you. I'm very curious as to why the drop-off point starts at 16th Street. This is a very residential area. The concerns from the Block Association was, and also just understand that it's this parade that we have, it's the Halloween parade that we have. 3 weeks ago, there was a dance party parade on our block, where typically this is where they've staged their floats, where their marching bands are. There is a tremendous amount with your parade and the Halloween parade, but that's separate, of traffic, parking situations that, where people on a block have to move their cars. So what I'm wondering from you is there any staging or dismantling of any floats, bands, etc.? What are the hours that we can expect it to be done? And why is 16th Street to 19th Street, which is primarily residential? It's great that you're turning off to 7th, because it's much more, as you go west, it is more commercial and less residential. We have had problems with people that, have to go to work the next day, and it's just, till the wee hours of the night, and they have kids that have to go to school the next day, and there's a lot of yelling and breaking down and dismantling and getting the barricades, and the police come, and the sanitation comes. So there's a lot of things that going. I'm just wondering, what the hours are that we can anticipate, and if there's in the future a way that you can turn off instead of 16, 17, 18, 19, what you were saying, would go down 14th Street, which is a two-way street, and it really doesn't displace as many people. And also, the other thing is, one of the concerns we're saying that people that do live on our blocks, that they were having a hard time getting back on their block as a resident. The police were giving people a hard time that actually live on the block.
Carrie, I think I can address all of your questions at
Great.
once.
Like,
But if
what time does the parade start? What time does it end?
yeah, if I miss one, please call me out. Some in the room may laugh at me, but we actually have been able to end this function at 6 p.m. for the last 2 years. So how it functions, and I am unable to share my screen at this time, but Carrie, you are more than welcome to have our presentation post-call, is we send a very large special contingent down the route, starting over on 5th Avenue, and they do the whole loop around the dispersal. That's going to be our elected officials at 11 a.m. And then the event is going to run behind it. We are looking at no more than like 50,000 participants, and I've done this situation with 175. So it's definitely going to end theoretically between 5:30 and 6 p.m. total. In terms of 16th Street for the Block Association, that street is going to be utilized only for people on foot, which per our training of these group leaders in these groups, they're just flowing through. There's no stop. We separate them from their vehicles. The vehicles stop over on 19 and 18. Sometimes they need to unload some speakers, where we also have recycling and dumpsters to help like mitigate waste. But people on foot are going to be on 16th Street, and they really just kind of mingle on through. We've got a huge group of volunteers over in that area, encouraging them to keep moving. Go find your subway. Do you have questions about which subway? Because we also have a lot of people who are traveling in from not New York City. So it should be relatively efficient. In terms of the choice of location of this dispersal area, as a girl who, this is not my first rodeo, I actually started in a year where Formation was on 16th Street, which was the staging area. It was loud. There was so much garbage. We found that that residential area was not conducive for that part of this function. So we flipped it. So as per what the city says works best for them, this we felt was the most inobtrusive to residents. And as what I was saying about our small businesses, we are kind of reassured within our permit and what we communicate out to city agencies that these areas should not be inaccessible to residents or people trying to go to a business. However, I am also asking this community board for some support in not allowing that to change on the day of, because that's really what has happened. Our volunteers also get very frustrated because there's a lot of them, they're volunteers. We train them on a certain plan, and sometimes on site, that plan gets changed for them by people we can't really say no to.
Yeah, you know, it's a major parade for New York. It's not like a quiet little parade, like some of the other parades throughout New York, Columbus Day Parade, or, you know, I can't think off the top of my head, but it, you know, it gets a lot of people here, and it definitely impedes on the neighborhood. But I'm satisfied with what you've told me. So you're saying it's going to start from 11 at 25th and 5th, work its way around and end at about 6 p.m., correct?
It ended at 6:01 last year, Carrie. Great. And we are making best efforts to mitigate all of these concerns. Like, it's top of mind, not just for our community that we care about, but also our volunteers on the street, you know? Tell them one thing, something else happens.
Yeah. When do you start putting up, or when does the NYPD start putting up all the barricades, and where are they placed when it comes to where closer to 16th Street? Are they blocking off all the blocks?
So the directive that we have given is that any barricade plan prevents people joining the event and like making it longer or perhaps delaying it. So from what we have expressed is it's really just stopping people from coming from 8th Avenue and like rejoining from that direction, where theoretically, on 16th Street from 7th Avenue, there is no barricade because 7th Avenue is the event. And then it turns to 16th and then it goes back into the world.
And for those people that have cars on those blocks, let's say 16th.
So there is, yeah, unfortunately, there will be no street parking that day, but it really is just that day.
On 16th between 6th and 7th?
Between 7th and 8th.
Oh, between 7th and 8th. Okay, but between 7th and 6th.
That is, I think, another added layer of what is us and what is city protection.
But
so, Karen, I hate to interrupt because this is obviously a good setting for these discussions to happen, but it does sound like you do have a lot of particular questions related to 16th Street, and I would be happy to.
And the surrounding neighborhood, because and the surrounding neighborhood, people, know that the parade is coming and they want to be prepared. Not just this block, 16th, 15th, other blocks that are east of 7th Avenue.
So I would love, Carrie, is what I'm hearing is like, maybe we can talk outside of this function, but know that
I'm trying to connect you both offline if that's okay, Carrie, and also, two parties goes out of our district. So, Janine, do you have everyone's information, Carrie and Zoe's, and so that they can connect offline?
Yes, I have their contact information.
All right, so Janine will connect you guys via email, if that's okay, Carrie, just so, because we still have a few agenda items to get through, but I'm very glad that you were here to ask these questions and, make a public record of them, and so that people can hear about, the traffic situation and the pedestrian situation that day, which can often get a little hectic, so that's very helpful.
This is actually, don't even get me started about the Halloween parade, because the Halloween parade is, and we will talk about that as we get closer, but because the private, it doesn't
fair. All right, thank you very much, Carrie. Thank you, Zoe, very much.
No, I mean, in all, just, I want to just say something, because the Pride Parade, based on what you said, the Halloween parade is a nighttime parade. And that causes way more situations for the neighborhood than the Pride Parade. So when we get closer to that, I do want to make sure that.
Absolutely, I will tell you that probably will not be in front of this board, because that most of that parade does not happen in this district. So I imagine the organizers of that will.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if we've ever been organizers of the Halloween parade. It's not us, yeah. But it was very helpful to hear your concerns about this particular parade. And hopefully it all goes very smoothly in a couple of weeks. So thank you both very, very much. I'm assuming it's okay for everyone here that we move on to the next agenda item. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Zoe. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. Two more items on our agenda. Sorry, guys. I knew this was going to be a long one. And so I two more. So I apologize for the length of this, but we're close. These are short. So number 5, you may have all seen in the news a few weeks ago, very tragically, we had a cyclist killed in our district in Hell's Kitchen, a biker traveling east on 50th Street, was killed by a truck. He was a 34-year-old biker killed by a truck who was turning right onto 11. Yeah, right onto 11. Who didn't see him. I was trying to find his name in any of the articles. I don't know if I saw the name of the cyclist. He's been released. So I can't mention his name here, but it's obviously very sad. We talk a lot about cyclist safety, pedestrian safety here. It's probably the number one subject we talk about. Thank you. Thank you, Janine. Yeah, we talk about a lot, but here, you know, today, obviously, it's home, this is our district. We have consistently asked for, better infrastructure for bikers, for bike lanes, protected bike lanes, daylighting. What else have we asked for? I mean, we everything. Here's a particular place where the infrastructure has not caught up to what we've asked for. So, you know, it would really, it is important that we speak at this time, because someone in our community is, killed. And so I think, we just want to take the opportunity to send another letter to the DOT, stressing the importance of, putting in protected bike lanes, going across town in our district, on as many streets as possible, as quickly as possible. I don't know if there's anything we want to say about this particular corner. Charlie, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, or if anyone else has thoughts on it, but otherwise, we were just gonna sort of repeat repeat the requests that we made before, but again, call attention to this tragedy, for the DOT.
But that corner is 50th and 10?
And
11,
okay.
Did I say,
There's a bike lane there.
that's going down the avenue, correct?
It's not a.
That's correct. The cyclist was, if you can see my cursor, the cyclist was coming down 50th and was turning onto 11th when a truck made a right turn, you know, truck driver being in the left-hand side of the vehicle, I suppose didn't see him and ran him over, and he was dead on the ground right here. So, you know, I think there's so few crosstown routes from the Hudson River Park Greenway into our community. The closest one heading this direction being, I guess, 52nd. There is one at 52nd, but there's just, you know, there's not a lot of options.
Yeah. So again, this is a street, I mean, the most immediate thing is we can, you know, this is a street lacking a bike path and, you know.
Yeah, I think we should say this is if there had been a bike path.
Yeah.
A protected bike path, he wouldn't be dead.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's not too much to ask, right?
Correct.
And so, and we could combine that with the letter for widening the 38, 39 bike lane, where they have been widened all the way to, I think they are being widened all the way to 8th Avenue or 7th Avenue, but they are not going to be widened yet in our neighborhood. And maybe we could say, you know, we want to improve the environment. This is one example. Another example is making it wider on the other bike lane, since you're going to do it.
Sure.
And ask for all of that in one package.
Sure.
I think that's a great point. That's a great point, Christine. I noticed they were widening and it presented to Community Board 5, and I don't know why it's stopping at 8th Avenue and not continuing on to the river. And also the existing crosstown lanes that we have, the one at 52nd, for example, is so often blocked. I mean, it's a very narrow lane. So, you know, that might be why somebody would choose 50th Street over 52nd Street, because I know people who avoid the existing crosstown lanes because they're so narrow, they find them to be more dangerous.
Right. So we could ask a 52nd, you know, widening, 37, 38, 39 widening, and installing a new one here. You know.
Okay.
And so put this package together saying, you know, the infrastructure is still not safe.
No.
That's what it is. I mean, we have not had a fatality for a while now. It's the first time.
But it keeps the city trend, which is seeing cyclist deaths. I think cyclist deaths last year were the highest they've been in like a decade or two.
Most people are cycling, so.
Yeah,
It's awful
yeah.
to even
The
have
need
one.
becomes greater
Let's
as
face it.
people do it.
One is too many.
Yeah, 1 or 2 minutes, yeah.
Well, fatality,
Yeah,
yeah.
just,
Yeah.
I
so,
mean, yeah, it's so scary. I mean,
Yeah.
so that would be my proposal, is we make a resolution like that and a letter like that.
I agree. Anyone, sorry, let's make sure that no one from the public, is anyone from the public want to speak on this?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
motion.
Yeah,
Second.
All those in favor?
all right.
Great. Thank you very much. Last item on the agenda Marking rules for daylighting intersections, it is a related item, but difference. May remember, we did vote to recommend universal daylighting across New York City. That is the removal of allowing cars to park near the intersection so that, or not only prescribing cars from parking around intersections so that you can see around the corners. You know, and for the new city rules about the outside the door cafes, making sure those aren't close to the intersection. And we got that, I know.
Because the open dining is that if you are going in the direction of the traffic, right? And therefore, that last parking spot cannot be used for open dining. 20 feet.
And both Christine and I are on the BLP committee that now has jurisdiction over those, and when we are looking out for that, beyond also measuring, we have to all go out with measuring tape soon, it's a whole thing. Anyway, so, and I don't be able to be here. Christine, can you set this up though, so that, because CB3 is already.
Yeah, so what happened is that now either the NYPD or somebody said, oh, but the two lines, you know, the two lines which are delimiting those parking space, which are now daylighting space, are not specified, do not specify that people cannot park there. So this is a very technical point that CB3 is raising and say, okay, why don't we ask DOT to change the rule so the rule reflects the fact that people cannot park in that space. And that's what
they also
change the symbol they paint there?
no, the rules of the city, the rules of the city doesn't say that if you have the two white lines, you cannot park.
But you can't park within the two white lines.
No, I'm talking about there is a double line going around the, let's say, this.
No.
You see that?
Yes.
Right, you are not supposed to park in the middle. Right, but the rule doesn't say that. So either some NYPD wise ass or somebody else said, I'm parking because I can park, right? So now we just need the rules to reflect the intent. And that's what the letter is all about.
So basically DMV is not New York City isn't consistent with DMV because I mean.
Yeah, wait, are you the expert on that? Wait, what did you do?
Saying. It's clear that you can't park, I mean, according to state rules.
How many people did you get fines for parking in
Right, we don't know, apparently.
It turns out you were finding people illegally, because it wasn't actually.
Apparently, the CB3 did the research and they
That's
found
very
that,
Yeah,
you know, that you could park there.
Wow.
And therefore, because it's not, you know, identified properly. And also it's important because a lot of those islands there, DOT is not going to paint that in truffle anymore. It's going to be painted, it's going to be left in asphalt.
Why are they not gonna paint it in chocolate?
Because they don't have enough paint.
Legal letter.
That's important, like people don't know.
Language of the.
If it's painted from, I think that's stronger deterrent than any official rule.
They are not going to.
New York City traffic rule section 4-044-. Do you never cite into these in your?
They don't have the time.
It says you can park in there.
No,
It's not a crosswalk.
A clear definition of the term marking, here, I'll read it. DOT has failed to engage in rulemaking to update New York City traffic rules sections 4-01, 4-04, 4-07C, and 4-08E to provide a clear definition of the term markings designated walking area, end quote, and to define intended and prohibited activities within a, quote, markings designated walking area, end quote, meaning that daylighted areas only marked by double white lines currently are not illegal for vehicles to cross and park, stand, or stop within.
I've never.
Can we, no, wait, is this a letter that's already sent by CB3 that we're signing on to?
No, we're gonna.
It's a separate letter.
Write our own letter, can we comment that they should go back to painting the truffle?
Right.
Sure, we can do that, no problem.
Sure.
And,
But you know, I know
put some planters and vertical protection too.
Right,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
more and more money.
Well, and so, yeah, it's the CB3 letter. I'll pass it on.
Ask for what you want.
Ask for what you want.
We can ask for the
Which-
whole thing and say at a minimum,
Hate it, yeah.
no, at a minimum, you have to change the rules.
Yeah.
Right,
Something you can do for free.
right,
And
exactly,
I know some of you are asking for this meeting to be focused. No.
right.
If, are there any public comments
So
on
wait,
a
what other
proposal?
people want to
I'm
ask?
gonna,
Oh, okay.
yeah, well, no, Are there any public comments? Hearing none, great.
Okay.
Well, Alan, go ahead.
Old business when you get to it.
Okay, what's the
A
business?
quick one, I made it.
What's the summary?
The summary is we're gonna
I see, I was
copy
gonna say
CB3,
that.
which is, no, we're not, except with Trump, with new paint.
And planter.
Well, they have that in there, it's planters, and it's hardening of, you know, to the extent
Okay.
that they can put down some planters or other hardening things, so it's not just, we're not just relying on the double white lines to designate where the
I
daylighting
want
is.
to
But where there
say,
is daylighting and there are double white lines, we're gonna update the New York City traffic rules to, make it clear that double white lines.
and I have
means
something
parking.
else, which is like, you know, they should let the citizen paint the damn stuff.
Unbelievable well, are you talking about I still can't believe they won't let your artists, like, because the whole thing is, okay.
No, that's the thing, I mean, you know, if they were saying, okay, this is a truffle thing, and we go and paint the truffle thing,
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
it's done.
No, we would paint Christine's face.
No,
And we're all over this district. It's
Okay.
Christine over here. Okay,
Done.
is there a motion? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Very great.
Okay.
I heard all call for all business.
All right, quickly, we did a letter back in February 22, after the death of a cyclist, requesting the extension of the 11th Avenue bike lane down to 22nd Street.
Yeah,
And it just occurred to me, because it's popped onto the Dropbox. If anybody's been down by 22nd Street lately, around it, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're going ahead with it.
oh, we can remind them in the other letter.
If
What
they,
about that?
yeah, maybe attach it to the other letter.
Yeah.
If they've done any studies there, but bringing the bike lane to the end of Chelsea Waterside Park, that's where it is, it's triangle.
Right,
Where do the bikes go afterwards? That happens to be a very busy,
so you are saying the letter we sent was not a good letter?
right? It should be updated. I didn't say it was a good letter.
That's all I need.
I'm not saying it's a bad letter. It should be updated due to the circumstances, so to speak.
Well,
Maybe ending it at 24th Street and then swinging around, but there needs to be a study, let me say, needs to be a study done about bringing it all the way down to 22nd
Well,
Street.
what about you look at where is the crosstown? And it should be brought down to the first crosstown we have,
which is what?
26?
Yeah, well, that's the problem. We don't have crosstown going down, but yeah, that's.
Yeah. well,
It's a fair point. Yeah, we can do that.
Wherever it goes, whether they go right or left, they may want to go
Yeah,
across the
but
highway.
let's wait until they bring that back to us
Yeah.
and we'll tell them, no, it's a bad idea.
Well, do we want to remind them to do it, if they're doing?
You know, I will incorporate in your letter that we passed a reminder of our, in the infrastructure, we've asked for, oh, by the way, we have.
What's happening?
What's happening on 11th
The
Avenue?
extension of.
So I
And I won't,
The whole letter about
We have
doing
so many.
vertical stuff
yeah, we have. so
and
many-
doing blocks and doing, I mean, we have
Yeah,
sent so many letters, I don't know where to go from there.
Okay,
but,
that's
so, all right.
Just
Thank you very
remind
much.
us.
Thank
We
you
can
very much.
attach them, we can say, look, we've been very concerned.
Yeah, exactly.
we
We
have-
don't believe in this other, but don't go all the way down.
Don't go all the way down.
No, it's a fair point. It is a fair point. You can't drop off like in the middle of nowhere. But we can, but that might be a further discussion of, okay, making bike infrastructure over there that makes sense on 11th.
Right.
So that, you know, you could seamlessly go from.
I don't think they're going to do it until they do the western.
So congestion pricing comes back.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Do we have a,
Yeah,
hey, we spared you. We could have been talking, street naming, guidelines.
That's right.
It's coming back next month. We keep pushing it, but it's, you know, we're there.
okay, all right,
Is there a motion to adjourn?
yes.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you all so much, thank you.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Good night, thank Charlie.
Because it sounds like a good idea.
It's so messy, but.
Because after 26, we're gonna get on with it.
No,
What are you doodling on the?
no, because there's no vote.